Welcome to Escaping Purgatory, a podcast where we rewatch Supernatural, then talk it through in the hopes we can finally escape this show.
Join us each week and leave comments on upcoming episodes, and together we can escape supernatural purgatory.
Hi!
Hello.
Hello.
We're not alone.
Who is that? So we have Jay on the episode today.
Hello.
The Pixelagora.
Because we're doing the episode with my boy, written and directed by my boy. I know, right? Directed too. Oh my God, he did such a good job.
Yeah.
Ben Edlund. We're on season 6, episode 20, The Man Who Would Be King. Make noise or something.
Clap, clap, clap. We'll put sound effects or this light jazz.
Insert noises of celebration here.
So we thought we'd have a guest with us this week, and we haven't had Jay on for such a long time. To be fair, we haven't had a guest on for such a long time. And why not bring it back to, family and art, and let's do it. And I know Jay loves Cas, so.
And I'm normal about this episode. Normal feelings.
This episode was so good, though. Oh my goodness. So I know, Jay, have you been listening up to how far we've gotten in the podcast? Are you listening as well?
You can say no. Okay.
This is possibly one of the only podcasts that I listen to pretty consistently in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you. So you know that I completely forgotten about this episode, right? I've said this multiple times, and then I'm watching it today. I'm like, how the frick did I forget this? But remember so many of the scenes. Why did this not implant in my brain in the way that everyone else has?
I feel you, because I've been rewatching, I have rewatched this episode, obviously, for today, and I was like, this episode does not exist in my memory, but every single scene exists as a separate entity. And I feel like it's mostly because most of these scenes are such fandom classics. They are all over Tumblr, and they are never one after the other like they are in episodes, but they are stripped apart for different analyses of this thing about Cas, or this thing about Dean, this thing about characterization of this character, and it's it's very disjointed. But I feel you completely. I was I did not remember that this episode existed, and it does, and it's great.
So it does. I think one of the reasons why I love Ben Edlund so much is I feel like his versions of the characters are my versions of the characters. My headcanons are his, and I feel like we could really sit down and have a good conversation. I feel like he gets, especially Dean and Cas, in a way that other writers don't. Because, beyond all this is the Destiel episode. I don't know if I want to say as an outsider, Annabelle, but I don't mean it like that. As someone who didn't remember this episode and maybe isn't as into the ship as me and Jay are. Do you see? Do you see? Do you see what is going on here? How was this not? How was it not? This is, and it's not a love story. It's it kind of is, but it's a tragedy. It's Shakespearean.
It's a breakup story. This is a breakup story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just rewatching it again, and I tried to make notes while I was watching this episode, and they ended up just being nonsense. So I just watched it in the end to absorb it. My notes are literally just Cas is a badass. Ooh, and that's all it kind of comes down to be honest. That obviously I have more than that. I also wrote the word E, which I don't know what that means.
The word E.
That's funny because I wrote ooh. I don't remember in what context I wrote ooh, but I was ooh. So I wrote it down. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this episode, especially Amy, because she's been talking about this episode since the beginning of time. Well, maybe since the beginning of season 4 at least. Yeah. And so actually, I have another question before we get really into the episode.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first Charlotte convention that I had gone to, the question that Amy asked me to ask Misha, because I couldn't think of a question, because I never can, was if we were to have another Cas episode, who would write it and who would direct it? And he said Ben Edlund.
Yeah.
And while I completely agree after rewatching this episode, I do wonder if you guys have like somebody else that you would like to see write an episode for Cas. I was thinking about it, and for me, I would like to see Sarah Gamble's version when she liked Cas.
Yeah, I'm on Sarah Gamble and myself have a very one-sided beef. One-sided for the simple reason that she does not know that I exist. And, but yeah, you do bring up a very interesting thing, because she did write, like, incredibly profound and touching things. But she, at some point, she was like, fuck that guy. So it's like, I do love a Bedland Cas, though, because I think in so many ways, he was like, he saw kind of not only who Cas was as a character, but also kind of the undertones of like the relationship between Dean and Cas and the like dynamic there. And I just think that that's incredibly interesting. What's this writer's name? It's right at the tip of my tongue, and I cannot get it. I remember it, because I do have another, potentially, but Amy, how do you feel about this?
My brain just did like the Philodex of writers, and the only one I could come up with, I want to see him write an episode like this that's entirely from Cas's point of view, would be Bobo Barons.
Exactly, that's the name that I was thinking of. Yep.
Yeah.
100%. Like, yes. I mean, he's the reason we have a lot of the cast we do in like the season 15, which I feel like is very true to Cas's character. Like, we have, I like to call him Daddy Cas. For the reason that he's a father.
It's the only reason. I promise. It's the only reason. I swear.
He'd do it. Like, he'd do it, and he'd do it great. And I think, but I would like to see Bobo and Ben Edlund write an episode together, actually. Like, they never really got to, and I think they both get the characters in a way that maybe some of the other writers don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I'd go to conventions, man. Like, I wish they would go, because I feel like there'd be so much insight onto, like, what were you writing? What genre were you writing for? Like,
I want to take some of them like by the clothes and be like, "What were you thinking? Like, tell me, please."
And that is probably why they don't go.
Yeah, maybe. Me specifically.
Let the actors be the patsy, get all our questions like, well, excuse me, in episode 714, I saw a thing out of place. What was for this? And like, where's the writers? They should be answering those questions. It was their fault.
Yeah.
Well, it was like one of the questions that was at the recent convention. It was like, do you think Jack slighted his mother by just writing Jack? I was like, he's an actor. Like, he's not putting that much thought into it.
He just read the lines, man.
I feel like we should have like a little convention that's like a Murder at the Orient Express, basically, where you get to put every single person who worked on like a specific episode into a little room and have a little chat with them.
I agree. Yeah. One other thing I'll mention from the convention, because spoiler for people who are listening to this, I guess this is the one we've recorded after we've been to that, although it's going to come out a little later. You can cut that if you want. That there was a question that was asked of Jensen, and this was the one where I was like, yes, where they were saying like, what character would you like a little more time as? And I think Misha said, he said human Cas, and then kind of left it there. Whereas Jensen said, well, I wanted to be Michael for longer. And like, then he went on to say that he even went to the writers and be like, this is only 3 episodes. He was like, why is this only 3 episodes? We've been waiting for this for ages. And they were just like, and he said that they said to him, well, the fans want to see the brothers back together again. To which I shouted, lies!
I can attest to that.
but then he said like Soulless Sam got like a whole freaking season. Like, so, you know,
Yes. That was what the vindicated tweet was, because he was also like, why did he get like half a season?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like there was a whole like big build to an arc, and then the arc just kind of didn't happen. The arc was just kind of like a little. And I mean, like, I feel like Jensen nowadays, I feel like he's a little bit better at it, but like by that point, he was in like kind of a chain smoking situation with Dean Winchester, where he just was like so in the character that he wasn't maybe particularly used to switching characters so fast. And to give him 3 episodes, he did not have time to get used to Michael, to figure out what makes Michael tick. And that's why a lot of people are like, "Ooh, Michael's not really great." Which,
I mean, after watching this episode, seeing them like talk about the prize fight, and you get the prize fight.
Yeah.
And it is what that is.
The
in that
Liars
church.
Man. The Liars Man. Honestly. It's so hyped. It's so hyped.
I'm still convinced that was exactly how it was supposed to go in the first place. They just didn't know how it was supposed, like, God hadn't actually written that part yet, so he was just like, well, shit.
Oh, I have theories. I have theories and notes.
So, okay.
Yes.
Well, are you guys happy to get into this episode?
Yeah, I have thoughts
absolutely.
and feelings.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we begin with the recap, and it is a lot of season 5.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised at how much of season 5 it was. And it's like random one-liners from a couple of episodes, and then a lot of swan song.
It's so intense too. I was very surprised to like see how intense of a recap it was. Because usually, I mean, Supernatural recaps aren't like a walk in the park on the best of days, but like this one was really like so many emotional like strong points of the previous season were touched and like put into that recap. I found it very, very interesting, the choices that were made there.
And if you think about what this is coming off of the back of, so Eve was just killed in the last episode. We've just been revealed that Crowley is alive, and then we're coming back to season 5. You're thinking like, what's this episode going to be about? Like, because this episode is very much out of left field. It really is.
Yeah.
Because we've never had a. Well, we had, I guess this season we actually had Weekend at Bobby's, which was another character episode. That wasn't about the boys. So kind of interesting.
I feel like this one's almost on par with like Baby on kind of like the left field, you know, like it's sort of almost like a bottle episode, only in that it's bottled from Cass's perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but this one also, I mean, where I feel like Baby doesn't necessarily push too much when it comes to the plot. I mean, it's kind of there to be enjoyed. This one does push the plot along. Like, things still happen. We just shift perspective and kind of learn a little bit more about the motive. So it is a character study. I do agree there. But it is a character study from a very specific perspective. And I think that, like, that's the like, I don't know how to say this exactly. Like the shift in perspective is kind of what's doing it for me here, because you're right, Annabelle, that like this is completely out of the norm. Like you would having watched the season up until that point, you would expect like a high action, like probably Sam centric kind of episode. Because it's like, oh, it's, you know, things about souls and stuff like that. But then you get
and also
that.
We're ramping up to the end.
Yeah, exactly. You could say that it's a bit of like a tempo shift, a little bit, because we do have like a lot of retrospection and a little bit like going back in time and like monologuing, and those are not like fast paced like wham, you know, things.
Right. So. But when there's action, it's very good.
Ooh.
Yes.
Still my heart.
Yes, I have notes about that too.
I think we all do. I didn't write down the timestamps. I don't know what you're talking about.
I will say, I think this recap is showing something that I've said all through this season, that like, pay attention. This is what this season's actually about. Like, this is why we're getting that tonal shift, because it's like, forget Eve, right? This is what this season's about, and this is what it's always been about, and this is what we've been trying to tell you in the background. But I think it's that. Because these last 3 episodes, why? Are like, this is actually what all of season 6 has been building to. Like, Eve didn't matter really in the end.
No, not at all. So then it continues with a little bit of, again, a lot of one-liners comes up. Then we get a little bit from Family Matters, where they are figuring out, the motivations of getting into purgatory. And then we get very pointed one-liners from Death and Atropos about it's all about the souls. And it's, they say it in the exact same way, same kind of tone. And then we get the very end of Mummy Dearest, which was last episode, and seeing Eve transform into Mary and then get killed. We should have known that Eve meant nothing by the way that she died in that episode, because she died really badly.
Oh,
that was underwhelming.
Yeah. We do talk about
another coin in the jar titled "Supernatural Hates Women."
So I just realised there is 0. No, wait, that's not true. I was about to say there was 0 women in this episode, but that's not true. There are some female presenting angels.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay, fine. We get a pass, I guess.
I think this. I think that kind of makes it a little bit worse, like the way these angels are portrayed. If they didn't have women at all, but that might just be me.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We're like, Castiel, tell us what we should do, because we don't know what to do. I'm a woman.
Because we're helpless little presenting women.
Please tell us, Daddy Cas, what to do.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's going on a t-shirt. And then we get into the episode, and boy, oh boy, it's Cas sitting on a bench in the snow, and he is giving a wonderful, wonderful monologue, and he stares directly into the camera. And I'm like, sir, do not do this to me. I just watched Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Tim Curry does the exact same thing. My heart can't handle it. No.
Is this the first fourth wall break in Supernatural?
It's a hard one to count because of they have broken the fourth. There have been other fourth wall breaks, but I think this is the one where they like he directly addresses the camera.
Yeah.
My thought on this is, so let's get right to the end of the episode. He's ultimately talking to God, right?
Yes.
On the bench. Do you think Ben Edlund knew about the whole thing?
I am told that I am told like I was there. I have insider we've been told like during conventions by like the actors and everything that they didn't know. But Robbie was notified that Chuck was going to be God.
Yeah.
So someone must have known, and I think that it is like an important piece of information to give to a writer.
Yeah.
So I would expect that he was aware while writing this episode that God and Chuck and everything was happening.
Because like going back and watching this, like having finished Supernatural is like, oh my God, like he is talking, he's directly talking to us / God. Like we are almost kind of, we are part of God in the Supernatural universe, in that we're like the fandom, if that makes sense. Like we're who he's kind of writing for as well as himself. So I thought that fourth wall break was really interesting. It's also interesting that the fact that like during his monologue, he's talking about like choice and freedom and the fact that he has that freedom and then breaks that fourth wall. Like,
yes,
I don't know. And it only works a freaking rewatch.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
On that
Or it's
level.
more powerful on rewatch.
You're right, actually, yeah. Because I think maybe you're right. Like the monologue about like choice and freedom and like making the right choice and then breaking it does still work on like a level. But I think they work on it several levels that once you've got past season 15, you're like, God damn it, we're also God as well as Chuck and the writers.
Yeah, I think it's the being doomed by context thing.
Yeah.
Of like, you know too much now, and now you get to watch all of the little details and put them together like a little messed up little puzzle piece of like, did they know when they were writing it? Is this a coincidence? Is that why this show hit so hard? I don't know.
Was it just a happy little accident? I don't know. I think sometimes it just was.
Sometimes they were just Bob Rossing the show.
Yeah,
I think so.
Is it the Bob Ross of TV show?
Yeah. But it is fascinating too, of like, we get addressed as like the audience, but also it's not really the audience that's getting addressed in canon, it's God. But it is interesting that like, and this is kind of, again, context that gets thrown out there later of like so many decisions in this show being made by the like production and everything were motivated by what the fans wanted. I mean, the infamous mailing feathers into the office situation, right? Like, the fans were influencing the show directly. So I do think that the idea that like, oh, in this situation, Cas is talking to the writer and God and the audience all at the same time it's not like, you know, it's not, at least maybe it is a coincidence, but it is not, I don't think it's wrong to say that both are the one and the same.
Yeah.
And they also had this to reference to as well.
Of course.
So there is, and not to say that they do, but we do know that they also go back to some episodes. They also don't always pick the best episodes to go back to, but they do have a tendency to like reference past things.
Yeah.
So they can take this and build upon it later. For, I mean, nobody knew how big it was going to be.
Yeah.
Is it big?
Well, within for us it is.
So
sorry. But yeah. So I'm not going to read the entire thing because it's quite long.
Yes.
And I will not do it justice. But again, Ben Edlund always writes the iconic lines, and so that, you know, there's the line about him like, "Don't step on that fish, Cashdale. Big fan for that fish." And then he talks about the Tower of Babel. And I thought it was really interesting that they put like evolution and like a Bible story together as if like,
you're so right. Yeah.
you can do that. You can totally do that. And it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So I didn't look at research this before this episode, which I probably should have done. But like, there's a bunch of clips from old movies, old black and white movies.
Yeah.
Any idea where they're from?
I don't know.
Not a single clue, no.
Okay, because it's really bizarre that it shows like the Tower of Babylon falling, Babel falling, and like Cain and Abel, and there was another one. I just remember like seeing it, this fake head just like popping.
Oh,
it was
David and Goliath. Yeah.
David, yeah. So yeah, it was. If anybody knows what those movies are, you know, let us know. He then goes on to say that, you know, it came to the sort of grand story, and it shows clips from season 4 and 5.
And of course, I remember the most remarkable event. Remarkable because it never came to pass. It was averted by 2 boys, an old drunk, and a fallen angel.
The clips that they chose to show for those were just, I don't know, it got me right in the heart.
Yeah, I know.
It was just, they knew what, I don't know who was in the editing bay on that day.
Another person we need to take by the clothes and be like, tell us what happened. It's just, no words, just the choices. The choices.
Yep, the choices. So he says the grand story, and we ripped up the ending and the rules and destiny, which I thought was funny because they were interchanging destiny and fate earlier in the season, but that's fine. Leaving nothing but freedom and choice. Okay, I'm also going to jump to the end real quick. Yeah. And the one thing that kind of annoyed me about this episode.
That's fine.
Yes.
He's talking about freedom and choice in this beginning part, and then you find out he's talking to God to find out what his choice should be. And I was just like, no, Cas, no, you have freedom. So, yes, that's the only thing I'm going to say about it, and we'll come back to it when we get there.
Just also, and I will talk about it when we get there as well, the conversation that he has with Dean is essentially him saying that he had no choice but to do what he did. So he doesn't really think that he has a choice. But, we will also talk about that later.
Yeah. Thoughts, feelings, thoughts.
Yeah. So then he goes on to say,
But what if I've made the wrong choice? I mean, how am I supposed to know? I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you my story.
Then he looks directly at the camera. Let me tell you everything.
Yep.
Please do. I'm all in attention right now.
I think Ben Edlund's just like a little bit in love with Misha Collins because the directing on this was so...
I'm so sorry. Isn't everybody? Isn't that the thing about this show?
But it's like one of the first times in this season that they've like lit him nicely. He's outside.
This is the only time in the entire show that he gets lit nicely, I think, personally.
Yeah.
Crime.
I have one thing to say more about this monologue is that the 3 Bible stories that he chose all relate to the Winchesters. There's Cain and Abel, which are the 2 brothers, and one of the brother kills the other. There's David and Goliath, obviously them fighting a larger force of evil. And then I would think Sodom and Gomorrah is talking about vice generally and them.
True.
Yeah. I do enjoy the fact that they chose Sodom and Gomorrah, and we know the kind of most popular interpretation of what that story is. And how that relates to the Winchesters. Interesting. I did not make those connections. That is very fun. And this monologue at the beginning, like we were talking before, Annabelle, has like some of those like iconic little quips that get put everywhere that I forgot were like from this episode.
Yeah.
And when they were popping up when I was rewatching, I was like, oh shit, it's from this one. I didn't remember. It's from this one. I noted down, don't step on that fish, Castiel. Big plans for that fish. And I was like, I know that one. And I was like unreasonably pleased with myself.
I think, Amy, you had actually referenced it a few episodes ago as well. Not in terms of this episode. You're like, somebody says this about fish, but you couldn't place the episode. And it is...
yeah, this is what I mean. It's iconic. Like, it sticks in your brain. Yeah. Like, I said, I think last episode that this has my favourite quote in that. I won't say again until we get there. Like, I have it on a sticker. I think I would get it tattooed. If I was to choose a tattoo, I would get that. So, you know...
I know which one that is.
Yeah, right.
Because I know. Because I agree.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so iconic. It reminds me of almost like this is again rewatching X-Files. I've been rewatching X-Files the whole time we've been doing this podcast, which is like going on 5 years now or whatever, and like it's still in my mind. It reminded me of like whenever Fox Mulder like monologues over something in the X-Files, and I don't know why. When he's like at the end, like, well, you never know. I can't even think of a quote now that he says, like, he normally like summarizes the episode like, and they never found the bodies. Like, that's basically what he always says. I don't know why this reminded me of that. Maybe they have a kind of similar voice. But the whole time, I think the grainy, because I watched this on DVD too, so I was getting the full non-HD experience. I think the graininess of it as well. I was like, yeah, it feels like that. I don't I just my brain automatically went there anyway. Okay, so they did do the title card. I remember it.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I was almost surprised about that as well. Like, maybe they should have changed it. So we go to the.
I'm sorry. Can I spearhead this segment, please?
You totally can.
We get into the first scene of the episode, and it's Dean and Cas talking in the Impala. Dean is driving somewhere. He does not tell us where he's driving. At least he's not truthful about it, but a little bit on that later. And this is the most insane choice of the first scene of an episode that you can like. It sets a tone for the entire episode.
It does. Yeah. Because
it's like, I have written down as a note, Dean and Cas were on a break scene. Because that's the vibe.
Yeah.
Please.
Because they're both lying to each other.
Yeah.
What did you do during your break? Oh, no, nothing. I didn't sleep with like 10 other people.
I'm
exactly.
not cheating on you.
Neither did I.
Yeah. I know we said this would be exclusive, but
yeah, exactly. And they're both trying to pretend like it's not bothering them either. It's like, I'm so casual about this. Why aren't you casual about this? What do you mean? I'm so casual about this. Like,
I love it so much. My major note on this was that this feels like one of the in-between scenes that I feel like we're always missing, right?
Yes.
Because we've been told that Dean and Cas are friends, right? They're at least friends because, and we saw in last episode, like Dean is shocked and appalled that Sam and Bobby were like immediately thinking that Cas could betray them because his mind didn't even go there to start with. So they're friends. He's loyal to Cas. But like, we haven't really actually been shown anything up to that point to say that, I mean, yeah, season 5 happened and he kind of showed up for them, but they kind of ended on a weird note. And then like, have they been friends since? Like, what has he been popping out in and out during season 6? Like, they only seem to call him when they need him, and this kind of plays into that as well. But this felt like a moment that you're like, oh yeah, maybe they are friends.
Maybe
they do like each other.
If we only have like text to go off of, like the stuff that we've been shown, like Cas is a pretty shit friend through the entire time since he showed up. So there must be something that fills in those gaps. And you're right, this is like one of the very good ones.
And so the thing is, I feel like with season 4 and 5, there are often references to conversations that Dean and Cas has had or have had off screen. Whereas I do feel like in this season, because Cas is so busy, I say busy in quotations. I mean, he was busy too. What was he? He was also in the room all the time. But because he was busy all the time.
That's busy work. Spying on your ex-boyfriend, question mark, is full-time job.
So we're not getting those same like, oh, I had a conversation with Cas. I had like to figure out whatever. So it does definitely feel like there is, like Jay said, a break in the relationship, even if it's just a friendship relationship. If you are trying to not see it as romantic, really trying to see it as not romantic, you can see like, they're having a break in their friendship.
And there are other little clues in this as well that like they do have these conversations. So like we see Dean driving at night and Cas just appears beside him, but like he's slightly surprised.
He shits himself. He full of shits himself when it happens.
But like the fact that he's like, but like it's not that freaked out, I think does play into the fact that like Cas does do this on the regular, right? Like he just appears places and he's like, oh yeah, okay, fine, then just like immediately adjusts to it. He doesn't even comment on the fact that he's just appeared out of nowhere. So Dean discusses on how, the fact that they think Crowley might be alive now. And Cas is still playing into the fact like, I don't know how he could have possibly tricked me. And there's a whole back and forth on that, really. Cas asks if they found anything out about Crowley, and Dean says no. This is all lie. Like, all of this is lie. All of this is lies. Cas asks where is Sam, so maybe he was kind of expecting him to be there, but like, I don't know. And Dean says that they're on a case tracking a djinn in Omaha, and that he's going to meet up with him. And Cas is just like, well, you know, if I wasn't so busy, like, I would come.
I'm making a face.
And it ends with Dean saying, you know, I get it, no worries. But then, like, he gets quite sincere and really does look at him.
But Cas, you'll call, right? If you get into real trouble.
And like, Cas he doesn't answer that at all.
Yeah.
Which, and Dean
The
looks
scene we snapped to is insane.
He looks so
I
sad.
love. No, this is I think a masterclass in just like showing and not telling. Because it's like, you'll call if you get into real trouble. Next scene we see is Cas being in trouble, not calling.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I get it. I see what's happening.
Yeah.
I love it. I love stuff so much.
Yeah.
Like I said, you just have to sit down and watch it. You have to absorb it. It goes directly into your brain. So we go to Crowley's lab. He is torturing. I didn't clock these were vampires. I don't know why I didn't clock these were vampires. I just thought they were monsters. But I don't think they're vampires because there's eggs involved. Like, vampires don't lay eggs.
So it's
I don't-
Eve is on the table.
Yeah.
Eve is on the table.
Eve is on the table.
Why did I not notice that was her? I don't know why. So yeah, he's dissecting Eve. She's laying eggs, and he shows this thing where he like pokes a poker into her brain, and the vampire that he has shackled up is like, ouch, brain injury. So I do love that line of like, what's it good for? And he says, apart from the obvious erotic value. I love Crowley in this episode. He is on peak performance. Like,
yes.
Yes.
Everything Crowley says is wonderful and beautiful and amazing.
yeah. Again, Ben Edlund knows how to write these characters.
Yes.
Absolutely. They're talking about purgatory and saying that like Eve should have opened the door, and Crowley's like, well, she would have if they didn't kill her.
Yeah.
I like this line of like, you screwed up, you let the hounds mangle the pheasant. That's so good. As in like, you let these dogs loose and like they killed our prey. Cas is distracted and it's making him nervous.
Is Crowley jealous because he's like, I can smell the Impala on your overcoat. He's like, you get to hang out with the Winchesters. I don't. I loved that car. Like come on.
We know that Crowley has a running crush on Dean Winchester. Like, he is full on jealous through every single time that Dean, Cas, and Crowley are in a scene together.
Yeah.
Crowley and Cas have a running rivalry for Dean Winchester's attention. And it is so obvious here. It's very fascinating because it's the like couple being on break allegory of like Dean and Cas. Crowley is the rebound for Cas, and Crowley knows that he's the rebound and he does not want to be there. And it is so good for me personally.
And I mean, he kind of solidifies that point by saying, I thought we agreed, no more nights out with the boys. Like that.
Yeah.
What
like
is
a
that? But
jilted
like
lover.
setting boundaries.
Yeah.
I love it because like Cas and Crowley clearly just they just hate each other, but you know that like you know the sex is good, right? So
No, but you're right. And it's like, oh, you're cheating on Dean Winchester with me, the King of Hell. Cool. I would like to have some boundaries in this relationship. It's not going to happen, but I'd like that.
I do like the end of that. So yeah, Crowley says like, you know, no more nights out with the boys, and Cas is like, well, yes, I spoke with Dean, like as in like not the boys, but I spoke with Dean, which I think again makes it more pointed and know that the attention is like directed at him. Like it says that I needed to know what they know. Also implying that he thinks that Dean would be the only one to give him that information as well. Like Sam and Bobby would not at this point.
Yeah. Well, he's never had the best relationship with either of them, I feel like.
Generally, I think their relationship, the problem is that both Sam and Bobby never forget that Cas is an angel. They both hold him onto that pedestal. And it's really difficult to be friends with people who would like hold you to that high standard, if that makes sense. Whereas Dean sees Cas as like, he's just a little guy. He's just a little guy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's even later in this episode where like, Dean, like Cas and Bobby, I mean Sam and Bobby and Dean have this conversation, and they're like, oh no, Cas is busy, like he's, you know, an angel and stuff, and Dean's like, no, he's a baby in a trench coat, like come on, like he's just a little guy.
Yeah, because and like getting deep on other lore from way back when is, I think I've often said that like, although Sam talks the talk of like, hey, let's see the grey area of monsters and see their humanity and all of that, he never really walks that walk, if that makes sense. Whereas Dean actually does. Like, he becomes friends with Benny and he becomes friends with Cas, and like, he can actually get over the fact that they're monsters, even though he says that he can't. So
the only person that he kind of does that with is like Rowena, and that's only because of like necessity.
And he hates witches.
Yeah. I do have like a bit of a terrible analogy for this. Terrible not because it's not accurate, but because it's kind of hurtful. if you look at monsters as like any minority, in my head, like queer people, right? Sam is the person who talks about like, oh, they just live different lives than we do, and yada yada yada. They should have freedom to make their own decisions if they're not hurting anybody, all of that. But then if he meets them, he's like awkward and doesn't know what to do, and he's like, I don't really want to talk to you. And then Dean is like, fuck them queers. And then he meets someone queer and chill, and he's like, nah, you're right. I'm not sure about other people, but you're fine. Yeah. So it's like,
that's 100%.
That is.
So that's so right.
Do you know what makes that worse? I'm just thinking, I don't know why, but Maddie always comes up with our episodes. But if you think about every like monster that Sam interacts with, it's usually because he ends up like in love with them, and then he has to kill them. It's just like, that's even worse.
That was the.
And he usually falls in love with them before they become monstrous in a way, or like reveal their monstrosity to them. So again, like that like comparison of like,
it works. Really badly.
This thing.
We're all making the face, you know, like
the real bad cringe face.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's Crowley doing? So he says that he has it on good authority that Cas's two little pets are trying to hunt me down, and like, forgive me, but I think you might have a little conflict of interest here, which is true.
Yes. Crowley's the only correct and smart person in this episode, I think.
100%. He knows what's actually up. We get a voiceover from Cas that says, like, he had a point. My interest was conflicted. I considered myself the Winchester's guardian. After all, they taught me how to stand up. And then we get the whole flashback to Stowe Cemetery and Cas exploding, except we get like this weird zoom into Cas's blood. And he's like, you know, he says, I was dead, but then I was put back. And we see him appear and heal Dean in the cemetery. He says, but at a terrible cost. We see him like heal Bobby as well. We then get like a shift in time where Cas goes to Lisa's house to go watch Dean through the window. Stalker behavior.
Stalker behavior, but also that scene.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I decided that we love Lisa in this house. Like, I am 100%. I think she would have been good for Dean in the end, too.
She was insane for letting him in to her house. But yeah, she was absolutely all right.
And so Cas says, like, I knew what I had to do next. So he went back to hell to free Sam because he basically went to go look at Dean being happy in Lisa's house and was like, this man isn't happy. I'll go get his brother. choices.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is what he is talking about, I think, when he's saying, did he make the right choice? Like, was bringing Sam back from hell a good choice? Don't know.
Hard to
That's why we're
say.
here, right? Trying to figure it out.
And so, of course, he messed up and brought back Sam's soulless. That was unintentional, and I believe Cas that it was unintentional. And he says,
Sometimes we're lucky enough to be given a warning. This should have been mine.
because he was basically overconfident. He was like, we put Lucifer and Michael in the cage. I can do anything I want. God, I'm God's favorite chosen son. I'm going to get Sam back from hell, except it didn't quite work out.
Yeah.
Back to Crowley's lab, and he says to Cas, I'm begging you, just kill them. Just kill them, Cas. Just do it. And Cas says no, and he's like, fine, I'll do it myself.
Is Crowley underestimating, like, the connection that Cas and Dean have? Because, like, from a viewer's point of view, it's ludicrous that anyone would ask, like, even at the worst of times, even at the worst points in their relationship that they've ever been in, like, if someone was like, Cas should kill Dean to Cas, he'd every single time he'd be like, what the fuck, no. Like, I don't think that there is ever a point in which their relationship would be so bad that they would be willing to straight up murderize each other. And they might say stuff like that would say to the contrary, but I don't think that when it would come down to it, they would be ready and willing to actually do that.
I agree with you, yeah.
I also agree. I also think that Crowley knows a lot more than he lets on a lot of the time. And you see that in this episode. Like, I was thinking as we get further in and he starts to sort of explain the premise of the whole season, I was just thinking, how does he know all of this information? Like, it's kind of crazy the level of knowledge that he actually has. So I think he does know, and he just manipulates the situation every single time.
Yeah.
So, like, by forcing Cass's hand of, like, you need to kill them or I will. Yeah. He's already formulating the next plan into how Crowley, is going to get into purgatory.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be that like use of, I mean, Crowley is a master manipulator, and it might be the use of that manipulation tactic of, like, ask someone you want to manipulate into doing something for something completely unreasonable, and then follow that up with a much more reasonable request, and you are likely going to receive that more reasonable request. Don't do this at home, children. Manipulation is bad. But, like, but, like, this is, like, the equivalent of that, of, like, oh, go kill the Winchesters. No, then be okay with the fact that I will, which is a bit more of a reasonable request. It's like, oh, you're not going to do this with your own hand.
And then that led to them finding out about the betrayal, which then led to them not trusting him anymore. Yeah. Which can then further Crowley's plan.
Because you're right, he is manipulating him. He's essentially pushing Cas into a corner in that which he has no allies, right? So he's isolating him because he's ultimately going to use him to help open purgatory. So it's a pure manipulation tactic. You even see when he, like, recruits him later on in this episode, but earlier on in time.
Yes.
Damn you, Edmund.
He plays into a lot of those manipulation tactics of, like, he knows exactly what to say to Cas to get him to, like, go with him and listen to his deal, right? Because Cas knows not to make deals with demons, like. But he is very naive. And I think the one thing this episode shows is that Cas is extremely naive. Like, he's actually not ready maybe for free will, and does need some guidance. But who that guidance comes from, it probably shouldn't be any of these people.
No, absolutely not.
It
should absolutely not be any of these people. And that's I think that the narrative of this season and, like, the next seasons and all of the time that, like, Cas is the guy doing something, like, organizing something, every time that he's in that situation of, like, I have to make very difficult, very important, very big decisions, he's thrust into that position, and he doesn't want to be there because he's not particularly qualified to be there. And I yeah. It's just,
Oh no.
he's a baby. He's a child. Do not put this on him.
He's that like introvert at work that like masks really well, so ends up being a manager, and everyone knows they hate being a manager, but they're really good at it.
Yeah.
It's like, got myself noticed at work, and now I'm paying for it dearly. Like,
Yeah, it's exactly that.
Yeah.
I do have a question about some of the dialogue on this. So, yeah, they talk about like the fact that Crowley's going to kill them, and Cas, again, in his hubris, is like, "Oh, just bring them back, fine." I do like the fact that Crowley says, like, basically, they've managed to kill everyone else. I'm going to be worried about them because they're going to kill me. That is good planning.
the line he uses here, I just want to make note.
Am I the only game piece on the board who doesn't underestimate those denim rat nightmares?
I do love that.
Beautiful. And the answer is yes.
As with, yeah.
The answer is absolutely yes.
They're not the ones that end up taking him out, which I think is really funny as well, to be fair. Like, yeah. So Cas says here, he says, just find purgatory. If you don't, we both die again and again until the end of time. The Winchesters won't get you. What does he mean that they're both going to die over and over? I don't understand this, because surely, did he think that God's just going to keep bringing them back? Okay.
Yes. Yep. Because he thinks he's God's favorite.
Yes.
And he was killed by Lucifer. So if he gets killed by Raphael, God will just bring him back. And then I don't agree that Crowley would come back. I think he would be done. Yeah. This was probably Cas trying to be like, trying to be manipulative, but he's not good at it, so he doesn't know how to do it, which is good. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's what it is. It's just that because he's died twice. Cas has exploded twice, and he's come back twice.
You're right.
Exploded twice.
So he really does think he's on a mission from God to avert the apocalypse by defeating Raphael. Like, he truly believes that he doesn't have a choice in this. I never really saw it like that. I don't know why. I just thought like he was only doing it to save the Winchesters, and that he was only telling himself that he was on a righteous mission.
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, Cas, in a lot of ways, is like a little stand-in for a story of a person who grew up very religious and is put in front of a crisis of faith. And for a lot of these stories of like these people, initially when you first get the little pieces of information that like this might not be a good thing, like when the crisis of faith starts, you cling to the view from before, and it does have like a very real hold over you because it's easier to interpret life through that kind of lens than to try to rebuild your life basically like with something new. And I think that like ever since season 4, ever since like Cas started having like little bits of free will thrown here and there, and all these emotions that he felt and got sent to heaven jail for, like he was sort of resistant to them, and he did not want, like, because to him, and it's kind of obvious and understandable, it is easier to be like, I need someone to tell me what I'm supposed to do, because not like that's all I've ever known, and having to do something that I have never experienced before is terrifying.
You're so right. Yeah, because like I said, I think all of this was ultimately for the Winchesters, right, to save them. But I think he's justified it to himself by thinking that he's on his righteous mission, which makes sense with what you said, that like, what else would it be? Why else would he be making that choice other than for a larger cause? Because that's what he's always done. And that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Love Cas. Just add that in there. So we go to Bobby's house, and they have a demon tied up. They're calling him Red, and he is a redhead, and I love that. I don't know why. It's just
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, okay, so we've run out of clever things to call people. Okay.
See, I thought it was just a nickname that they gave him, just because, like,
I agree.
because they you see an aspect of a person like that is your nickname now.
So they are praising this demon on the fact that he's a really good hunter. Bobby particularly is saying that he managed to dig out a nest of vamps, because obviously they're still collecting monsters for Crowley's experiments, etc. And Red's denying that the fact that they're taking him back to Crowley. He's saying, like, didn't you hear? The king is dead. They torture him some more with some holy water and say, like, look, we know he's alive. Just tell us where he is, essentially. And when he doesn't agree, like, Sam is holding up Ruby's knife, which it's always going to be called that.
Yep.
And they're like, whoa, what are we going to do with this? And then just as they're about to, like, I guess, torture him with the knife, Dean walks in. So Bobby's left.
Well, he does stab him in the leg.
Yeah, Bobby's left to stab him in the leg, and, like, they go have this conversation. And he's just there, like, ah!
That is the ultimate power move. Like, I don't know. I don't care what you say. Like, that's Bobby is messed up.
This is like, yeah.
This is the second episode in a row that he's, like, on screen torturing somebody.
So true. Yeah, and that last one was like, that was bad. That was bad. I mean, Cas was worse, but that was bad.
Yeah.
So they all have this little powwow in the kitchen, and Sam's like, what'd you tell him? And Dean's like, nothing, it's fine. So he's explaining that he saw Cas, and I guess he called them after that he'd spoken to Cas, because they immediately know when he walks into the kitchen that he's spoken to him. So he's explaining that he's lied.
Told him we were on some crap monster hunt. He doesn't know that we're getting close to Crowley. You know, he's our friend. And we were lying to him through our teeth.
He's really uncomfortable with the situation. Like, Dean is very loyal to Cas in the way that, like I said before, like, Sam and Bobby isn't. And I think it's really obvious in these little conversations that they have between the three of them. You know, he's like, Crowley tricked him, like, he burned the wrong bones. And Bobby's like, yeah, but he's an angel. Like, how could that happen? I don't know who this is. He says he's the bulky I can't even say it. Botocamus of heaven. What reference is that? I'm Googling it. I'm Googling it.
It's Dean and the bizarre references of, like, movies no one has ever watched.
Oh, of course he knows this. Right. He's a fictional character played by Bronson Pinchot in the television sitcom Perfect Strangers. I'm guessing he's kind of like some kind of fool guy or something. He's a naive, optimistic, and well-meaning person, is how he's described on Wikipedia, which tracks. Okay. And Bobby's kind of like, look, nobody's saying anything. Like, it's just, we're just looking around. But Dean, again, is really defensive. He's like, you think that Cas is in with Crowley? Crowley!
We all know that line.
And Bobby, again, is like, well, I hate myself for even thinking it, but, like, we see that Cas is listening to all of this because he's invisible, like, in the room with them. So... Awkward as anything.
Stalker. But we, by this point, know that he has a history of stalkerish behavior.
That's so true. Yeah. Watching your, like, almost boyfriend through the window of his now girlfriend's house is kind of is something. So yeah, Sam's just like, he's our friend too. Say it like you mean it, Sam. And he's like, I'd die for him, I would. He's like, I'd die for him, I guess. And then Bobby says, like, and this is an important line.
That means we're dealing with a Superman who's gone dark side, which means we've got to be cautious, we got to be smart, and maybe stock up on some kryptonite. I'm
so sad this wasn't a Star Trek reference, only that because we'd get to hear Cas say it later.
What kind of Star Trek reference do you think they should?
I don't know. They already did the Khan worms, but, like, there is that whole plot line in Next Generation of, like, the whole of basically the Admiralty being infected with brain slugs. Maybe that.
I think that'd be a little difficult to reference.
Or, like, Mirrorverse. That would have been a good one. It's like, they could have said, means we're dealing with, like, a Mirrorverse Cas here, but he hasn't yet grown a goatee, but maybe we should stock up on some phasers. I don't know. Look, I'm not saying that I'm Ben Edlund.
I'm just saying that Ben Edlund should watch Star Trek and take notes.
More Star Trek, thanks. And then Dean pointedly looks at Sam and says, "This makes you Lois Lane." No, Dean. This makes you Lois Lane. Sorry, I just think that's so funny.
No, you are correct.
So Bobby's like, we've got to find Crowley before he opens Purgatory. And in the background, they are still torturing the demon, trying to find out where the Crowley is. And he eventually gives them the name of a demon called Ellsworth. While this is happening, Cas is doing a voiceover saying, like, they already suspected me.
And the worst part was Dean trying so hard to be loyal, with every instinct telling him otherwise.
The number of tight shots of Dean Winchester's tortured face we get in this episode is unholy.
And this one is particularly bad because it's like, you see Dean, but then you also see Cas, like, really close. Like looking at Dean, and you're just like,
I wrote this down.
I mean,
I wrote it down. What did I say? I said,
the texts.
"Ooh, the longing in Cas's face as he walks past."
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I have something. Right. Why was Ellsworth another Bobby? Exactly. Like living in the same kind of house, kind of look, everything. I was like. But like,
because
I mean, it makes sense for your Mirrorverse because he does have
he's
more.
got the goatee. He's the Mirrorverse Bobby, right? This. Oh my god, you're on it. Because Crowley was like, we need to hunt monsters. Who's good monster hunters? The Winchesters. How do their operations work? Damn it, we need a demon Bobby, like, to make their whole thing work.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
It's I think a very interesting depiction of like what would happen if Bobby was not in fact on our quote unquote side. Like this is the nightmare that he could absolutely become if he wanted to, because he's a nightmare to some people, notably the FBI.
I'm Mirrorverse. I'm sorry, but Mirrorverse Bobby is like that's peak. I sign about that so much. Oh my god. Yeah, because he's sat at this desk, he has all the bubbling goblets of blood, which apparently demons communicate with. Why, though? No, I'm sorry, but why? Like, why don't they just have phones? Because they're all on Earth. Why are they communicating through blood balls? It made sense when they were communicating with people in hell.
Cheaper.
No phone plan.
The United States is spotty with service, and a bowl will pick up anywhere.
But it did make sense when they were trying to communicate with people who were still in hell. But I guess they're not doing that, right? They are actually communicating with people who are on Earth. So for what? For the aesthetic?
Habit?
I love that.
I do think it's very difficult to butt dial a blood bowl.
And like, how often do they have to like refill it? Like, does it have to? No, I don't want to get into that.
We've talked about the coagulation properties of blood many times on this podcast. Sam's been drinking it.
Don't they could potentially be like adding the little thing that they add into like tubes when they take your blood to not make it coagulate.
Exactly.
So they could put that in the blood bowl. Maybe blood bowls just come packed, like smeared with it, pre-smeared,
pre-bubbling.
Yeah, who knows?
I hate this because it's dumb. It's sorry, but
it's really dumb.
No, clearly this is the thing we should focus on in this episode: the logistics of Blood Bowl versus phone.
Just pick up a freaking cell phone. And then so we see him being a Bobby, like talking to the FBI and all this kind of stuff, and the two demons come in who are supposed to be the demon version of Sam and Dean, presumably. We hear Cas saying these demons would lead the Winchesters to Crowley, and Crowley would tear their hearts out. Not right, but what he really means is that they would reveal him and his betrayal. Not that I don't think he believes that Crowley would kill the can kill the Winchesters.
No, and he's not concerned about Crowley existing. Not really, anyway.
he's talking metaphorically. He would tear their heart out because of the emotion of
you're
betrayal.
I also think that it might be, I think Cas is lying to himself. I think he's trying to justify his decisions of like, this is totally like, he has some self-awareness in this episode because he's like, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself, and maybe this is like yada yada, maybe this is, you know, I'm probably not being truthful to myself, whatever, but he does not clock all of those moments, and he absolutely is lying to himself in this.
He's recounting a story, and when you recount a story, you try to make yourself the hero. Right?
Absolutely.
And he isn't.
Make yourself look better.
Yeah, this was a bad choice.
Yeah.
This choice was bad. Well, the reason he
this
gets
is a
called out.
litany of bad choices.
Yeah. So Cas just bursts in, and he like, he smites these
Amy
demons.
needs a second.
And they should be grateful that they were smited by him. that shot of him pushing the smoke back into Mirror Bobby's mouth and then smiting him.
Iconic.
Woo!
Iconic. I'm very, very, very heterosexual, obviously, about that scene. I have this noted down, but I also have an interesting note about it, is that I am, like, at a certain point in Supernatural, demons kind of stop being people who are innocent and possessed and start being just like, you're kind of expendable, sorry.
Yeah.
This demon tried to evacuate from a body. I don't entirely know all of the lore about demons that there is. Like, is it impossible for an angel to smite a demon unless they are occupying a body? Like, is it impossible for an angel to smite just the smoke itself? What I'm trying to get at is, was it necessary for Cas to push this demon back into a person and then kill that person when the demon was vacating?
Yeah.
Like, for aesthetic reasons, absolutely it was necessary. It was imperative. Like, it was needed, and I'm glad it's there. But also, like, was it logistically necessary?
I think, to be fair, I think they do need to be in the vessel for them to be smited. I don't think we ever see an angel smite smoke. I don't think that happens. So I think you're right. And also, like, yeah, it was just some badass, like, bamfiness, to be honest. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think but you're right. I think there's like a throwaway line, maybe like last season, that basically like the people in the vessels are already dead, so we're maybe not supposed to feel as bad for them. And basically that's...
Yeah, we're kind of justifying the situation.
Yeah, it kind of just applies to everyone now. Like, oh, they're probably already dead anyway. You know, so it's fine.
And I think after that episode with that pregnant woman that got... I cannot remember the name of the episode right now, but the pregnant woman who becomes possessed and like has that horrible experience. I think after that, you're supposed to be like, oh, it's a mercy kill.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have to remember what they did as a demon. But that only came to mind right now because of what we're talking about. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm also still like, yeah, they keep killing innocent people.
Guys, yeah. So yeah, we can all agree that this scene was hot. And at the end of it, and this happened a few times while I was taking notes, is that I took a note and then like a few like minutes later, Cas said the thing I wrote down. So about what we just said about him like doing this for himself, he says, I had no choice. I did it to protect the boys. Or to protect myself. I don't know anymore. And we actually just had that conversation, and this happened many times in this episode for me.
Yeah. He's a little self-aware.
Yeah.
But he's not fully self-aware.
Yeah. So we get a dramatic entrance from Sam, Dean, and Bobby, and they're raiding the house, like the Ellsworth house, and it's completely empty. So before it had all of the maps, and like it said, it looked like Bobby's place with just mess everywhere. And now it's like, how God cleanliness, I think is how Bobby refers to it later on in this episode.
Yeah.
So it's just completely wiped. They sort of sweep the house, just trying to see if there's anything. Dean makes like a hand gesture for Sam to check a room, like you do in the police force or whatever. And Sam just responds out loud. Like, you're not supposed to respond out loud when you do hand signals. You're supposed to acknowledge and just do it. And I was just like, what are you doing, Sam? Like, no.
That is an interesting detail.
We get more into like Cas's perspective and back in time. So we kind of leave present time with Sam and Dean and Bobby sweeping the house. And we hear the voiceover of Cas saying, hiding, lying, sweeping away evidence, and my motives used to be so pure. After supposedly saving, quote unquote, saving Sam, I finally returned to heaven. And this is where it's also confirmed that heaven is still segmented. So each person has their own kind of heaven. He says each soul generates its own paradise.
I favor the eternal Tuesday afternoon of an autistic man who drowned in a bathtub in 1953.
Which again, very iconic line.
Yes.
It looks like a nice
On the
garden.
one hand, was it necessary to say he was autistic? Not necessarily. No. On the other, is this anywhere as bad as the depiction of modern media of autistic people? No. So it's fine, I think.
Yeah, you're right. It did feel unnecessary. I didn't really, I think I've heard this line so many times, I was like, yeah, all right. But yeah, you're right. You know what? Anybody can enjoy flying a kite at any age.
Exactly.
Whether you're neurodivergent or not.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is very true. So Rachel was from Frontierland.
Yes.
She's the angel that will eventually will fight Cas and gets killed by Cas.
Yes.
In that episode. So as it's like panning around the heaven of this man, it then shows like a group of angels together, and Rachel says, "Oh, you're alive," and they basically start to see Cas as the new god because they're asking for direction from him.
God brought you back. He chose you, Cas, to lead us.
And Cas is trying to explain, well, no, you don't need to be led anymore. You're all free to make your own choices and to choose your faith. And Rachel responds of, what does God want? So it's very much like, okay, that's great. Thank you for giving us the choice, but what does God want?
Yeah. I do feel for the angels here.
Yeah.
And again, like they're thrusting Cas into a position he does not want to be in because he is very much one of them. Like he also needs someone to tell him. Like this entire episode is him needing someone to tell him what he is supposed to do.
Wait, is this Cas's coming of age story? Where you you think you're going to become a grown-up and you're like, I'm going to know all the things. And then become a grown-up and you're like, oh, wait, no one knows any of the things.
We're all making it up as we go along.
It's like I need an adult. You are an adult. No!
What do you mean?
But this is kind of it, isn't it? This is Cas's awkward teenage years. Like he's trying to figure out his way in the world without like an authority figure, and he's messing up. But like, we all have to go through it, my man.
Another layer of messed up. Yeah, another layer of messed up on top of all of that is that isn't Cas canonically the youngest sibling?
I think they do often refer to him as like little brother, right? The archangels do, or at least maybe I made that up in fan fiction, but like I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. By this point, the lines are blurry, and I don't know if it's fanfic truth or if it's just truth. And
I'm pretty sure Raphael says something about that in this episode, actually. So yeah, Rachel then says, "What does God want?" And Cas says, "God wants you to have freedom." And clearly, he thinks that because he came back, Cas came back after choosing freedom. So he wants to give that to all of the angels. But does God really want them all to have freedom? No.
It's the opposite as well, because God brought Cas back to continue the narrative because the story didn't end, right? So
right.
It's almost the opposite. Like he brought him. This is real dark. Cas dying would have been his choice of freedom, right? Because that was a choice he made in the end, and that would have actually been like, but him actually being brought back is like still locking him into the narrative, and he's constantly like railing against it.
Yeah,
and because the next line is his narration, and it's your favorite line of Supernatural.
Freedom is a length of rope. God wants you to hang yourself with it.
I love so much.
Chills. Because
it feels like it was written by like, I don't know, Tolstoy or something, and it's a freaking Supernatural.
Yeah, I've done a little quiz on Tumblr. Shout out to if you're listening, if you were the one who made it. But like, Is it a line from a classic like literary work of art, or is it a line from Supernatural? And I did not get like good results. I was like, I don't know, like I was still pretty okay, like 50 or so percent, but it's like it's hard to tell at times.
Because it's so true. Like Ben Edlund, this is why I love you, and like I would like to sit down and chat to you, please.
Ben Edlund on the podcast to win.
It's so true because no matter what choice you make, it always has some unintended consequences, right? And I think that's basically what Cas is like saying here is, I don't think there was any choice you could have made that would have been correct. And it's so true in life as well. Like you shouldn't agonize over your choices so much sometimes, because actually there's probably not a correct option. They always have some kind of unintended consequence, whether that's good or bad, you know, it comes down to it. So yeah, but ultimately you should try and make the choice that I think decreases the amount of people hurt, or the like does the most good to people. That's my philosophy if you're making like very serious choices, which is kind of what Cas is also trying to do, but ultimately it ends up bad. So it's a difficult one. I love it so much. I don't know why. I just think that I guess you could replace it with like just like do what you want. It doesn't matter in the end.
Yeah, I that was kind of what he was trying to get at, but I don't think he had the words to be able to say that for them to understand. So that's why he's like just using words like freedom and choice, but he's talking to these angels as if they're human and they understand those concepts, but they've watched humanity.
Yeah, they don't have the necessary context. They don't have, and I mean, like even among angels, they don't have the experiences that he has. He is the breaker of the mold. Like he has made choices that matter to him that don't matter to heaven. It is fairly, I think, accurate to say that none of the other angels have at any point made decisions that were like to do something that they wanted and not what heaven wanted, that contradicted what heaven wanted. And if they did, like they were destroyed. Like that's canon. Like hello. Yeah. So
I'm about to make the worst analogy and I apologize. So I said before that angels are like worker bees, right? But like if you took a worker bee and told it to go do something else, like other than collect honey, it'd be like, why? Because I'm collecting honey for the good of the hive, right? But then Cas did that. So does this mean the Destiel is essentially just the bee movie?
Oh no.
Burn this down. Burn this place to the ground. We've got too far.
I'm sorry, it came into my mind and I had to say it, and I'm sorry that I said it. But
drone strike. Amy's address is
Oh, but I hate that it's kind of accurate.
True, right? Anyway. The bee leaves the hive and falls in love with the human.
I hate you.
Yeah, so what does a bee do when it doesn't collect honey anymore? It makes bad choices. I'm so sorry, I'm gonna stop. Maybe that's why Cas is so into bees. Maybe he sees like his brothers and sisters in the colony and is studying them with like, how do we break this? How do we like, is it possible for them to make, get out of that kind of hive mind to understand like how they could possibly do that? And I think he finally realizes it's maybe not possible. Yeah, made it sad.
I'm trying to be so serious. I cannot stop thinking of the fucking movie. It's like I have this vision of like, oh, this is the first movie that Dean shows Cas. Because it's like, oh, I got something that you're gonna relate to.
It needs to be a Tumblr post. Like it needs it, and I don't know how to like correctly articulate it. So like, if somebody else would like to take this and grow with it, go with it, just credit me, it's fine.
Please tag me.
Oh, how do we recover from that? I don't know. I guess we just go for it. We just go for it.
Yeah.
So we get another narration from Cas. He says, "Those first weeks back in heaven were surprisingly difficult."
Explaining freedom to angels is a bit like teaching poetry to fish.
Very iconic line. And then there's Raphael, which, as much as I despise what he's trying to do, the actor who plays Raphael, so good.
Incredible.
So menacing.
Incredible.
Just like, if he was my older brother, I'd be like, okay, yeah, sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, we've had a couple of, like, actors playing archangels over the years. Like, I do think that this is one of the, like, top performances, even though he's not... I don't think we see him a lot. Like, he's not in portrayal of Raphael for a long time.
Not at all, no.
I think Raphael is what I imagine that Michael was like, because I feel like Raphael looked up to Michael a lot, so I imagine that their personalities are similar. He's not menacing in the way that Lucifer is, because Lucifer's kind of just like sulky.
Lucifer is the emo child.
Whereas they actually are commanding and think they are on the the right side of history. So they're kind of, I feel like people who think they're on the right side of history are more dangerous, because they feel so righteous and like anybody who's against them is essentially evil. Yeah,
but here I don't think he has that righteousness that Michael does. Because Michael has that righteousness of, like, I'm doing what Father wants. I'm doing the thing that is expected of me and all of that. And Raphael even says it himself, I'm doing this because I want to. Because it's the thing that I want. He does hide a little bit behind, like, God's will at the beginning. But then when Cas pushes him and is like, why are you doing this? It's like, oh, because it's what I want to do.
I guess he wants the power, right? He's always lived in his brother's shadow, so... he wants to be the one who finally leads heaven to its, victory.
Mm-hmm. Kind of along those lines of like, when Raphael says, because I want it, is it because he is now the strongest angel in heaven? So therefore he should be considered God? Like, we don't really see how the angels talk about Michael that much, really. But we do hear how they talk about Raphael as like, the whole reason why Cas can't defeat him is because he's too strong. And because he's so strong, he should be considered the god amongst angels, and therefore, like, God's will is now, by default, Raphael's will.
Yeah.
Even though Cas is being chosen by God.
It's an interesting one, because it's kind of like... Raphael's kind of the natural successor, right? He's the kind of prince, to ascend the throne, whereas Cas is chosen by God. And I think that happens in it's like King Arthur, right? Isn't that what happens? Like the sword chooses him, but actually there's another king that's supposed to be it's that essentially. Yeah. So you end up getting these factions thinking, well, this person's supposed to be the king, and this person has been chosen to be the king,
but also every single archangel except for, I believe, Gabriel is shown to have some kind of chip on their shoulder about the thing that another archangel has that they want, right? Raphael is jealous of Michael's power and his the fact that God is like, oh, I want that, but also of Castiel of God kind of, it seems like you have God's attention and that political leverage that comes with it. I want that, so give it to me.
Yeah. What's interesting though is what I said before isn't completely correct, because the first thing that Raphael says he's going to do is go and free Lucifer and Michael from the cage. Yeah. Does he not think that he could wage war on hell without them? Why does it have to be them? Why does that prize fight need to go down?
Because he wants the apocalypse.
Yeah.
He wants to restart the apocalypse, and he cannot do that without them. Because those are the catalysts of the apocalypse.
I feel like he could do it. Like we tried harder.
So it's kind of interesting. Does that not mean that Cas is actually stronger than Raphael? Because why wouldn't Raphael just go straight into hell and release them? What is he waiting for?
Oh, you're right. I don't know. I think they're kind of shady on the they're not sure on the whole power level things, because maybe it's that because Cas has been there before, it's be easier for him or something, or
I think what it is actually, I'm going to take it back a little bit, because this is in the first weeks of the apocalypse not happening. This isn't like months and months. We're not in the current time yet. So I think this is more, Raphael has been maybe even trying to find Cas, because he's been going around like telling angels that they're free. He can't find him because he's in like people's heavens and whatever have you. And he wants to humiliate Cas so that people will then follow Raphael, to then he would go and start the plan.
Yeah.
But also, I guess.
And also, like, he cannot, like, do this thing that he wants to do without all of the strength of the heavenly host, because we know that sieging hell is difficult and it takes a lot of, like, heavenly power from the first episode of season 4, where Cas explains to Dean, like, how many angel lives were lost because, like, in the siege of hell, like, how long it took. They were sieging hell for the entire time that Dean was in hell, and that's like 80 years in hell time, so that's a lot of time, and that's a lot of people to throw at it. And I don't think that without the support of all of the people who are like, Cas is our new leader, Raphael could do it.
Yeah, I agree. And also, I think hell is probably in just amount of disarray as heaven is. So that's why it's so easy for Cas to go in and get Sam out.
And
so quickly.
he wasn't actually successful though, was he? He only got part of Sam out. So that kind of plays into it too.
So the deal is that Raphael wants...
You'll kneel before me and pledge allegiance to the flag, all right?
And what flag is that?
Me, Castiel. Your allegiance to me. They're soldiers. They weren't built for freedom. They were built to follow.
Then I won't let you.
Really? You?
He then gets like severely whammied back into the original heaven that he was in, like his favorite heaven, and he like coughs up all this blood. And this is where Cas says, I'm not ashamed to say that my big brother knocked me into the next week. So there is some sort of hierarchy of age, but we just don't know where Cas like sort of...
I think we'd be remiss to not mention that just as Supernatural does not particularly seem to like women, it does not also particularly seem to like people of color, because Raphael is portrayed by a black man and he's not a positive character, of which we are lacking in general.
Yeah. I'm kind of not mad at it.
But we did have Rufus.
We did have Rufus. I do agree. I feel like Rufus was a very interesting amalgamation of let's put as many representations as we possibly can into one character so we can bang them out.
Yeah.
Like, I've got nothing against, like, characters, powerful, evil characters being portrayed by whomever, because I support gay rights and gay wrongs. But, like... But to put, the evil character we are fighting against to be the only currently existing, like, black person in this narrative, bad. Do not do that.
I think it stands out because there's not a lot of representation on the show, right?
Yes. And that's just a problem with TV in general as well. So the ending of being in heaven is Raphael saying,
Tomorrow you kneel, Castiel. Or you and anyone with you dies.
I love they do a lot of camera shots in this where they film them from like below. I mean, obviously this is because Cas is on the floor and he's literally looking up at Raphael. But there are other shots in this where I can think of like ones of Cas and Crowley where they also shoot them from below, and I just think it just makes people look like so, I don't know, like you're like a small child. You're like, no, menacing.
It's definitely a technique, and like I do find it funny because obviously with Cas, with Sam and Dean, he is a smaller stature because they're giants, right? But then with Crowley, Cas is actually taller.
Yes.
Right?
Quite a lot.
Again, because of stature. And it's just to see them play off of each other, to me it did really feel that it was an angel who thought they were so much more powerful than this demon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with the camera work, it really like sort of leaned into that as well.
Like, it's amazing with direction how much arrogance they can show just with camera shots and them not even saying anything. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's really good.
Absolutely.
So then we cut back to Ellsworth's house, and Sam, Dean, and Bobby are having another little powwow and talking about how clean this house is. And like, there is absolutely nothing there that they have. There's no clues, no nothing. And they're like, so what do we do now? And obviously they're going to try and call Cas. Dean tries. And we do see that Cas is actually, he's in the room, right? Yeah. Yes, he is in the room, watching them.
I want to just say that every time that Dean tries to call on Cas when someone else is in the room, he is so awkward about it. Like, what? He's here, Sam is trying, and he's like, this is really important, okay, we really need to talk to you. Normal sentence. Dean says, Castiel, come on in. Which is...
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. Well, have you ever tried to call your partner with somebody else in the room? It gets weird.
No, absolutely. It's like it's the difference of like, oh, I'm calling my friend to figure out where they are versus I'm calling the guy that I am on a break with and I cannot, and I'm so casual about it. Let me reiterate, I'm so casual about this, and this is so fine. And it's like, yeah, it gets awkward.
Yeah. No, I agree. I love the screwed up eyes to me and the like hands. It's just peak. Yep, love it.
Yeah.
Before they actually do the prayers to Cas, Dean is really like expressing his loyalty to Cas as well. Like, when we're stuck, we always call him. You know, he broke rank for us. He bled for us. This is Cas. We owe him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And then we do get the voiceover saying, but I didn't go to them because I knew they would have questions I couldn't answer because I was afraid.
Yeah.
So that they all sort of looking around at each other like, well, that didn't work. And Dean makes an excuse for Cas, saying that he's probably busy. And they're like, okay, all right, well, back to square one, I guess. And they're gonna, go demon hunting. And as they sort of turn to leave this house, they get attacked by 3 demons. And there's a freeze frame. And I was like, Edland.
Sorry.
Edland. Are you taking directional prompts from Singer? Because we didn't need padding.
I love these. They were so funny. Yeah. I guess it's supposed to be, like, if I give Ben Edlund the benefit of the doubt on this one, because I kind of hate a freeze frame. It's supposed to be showing how quick Cas is thinking, like he's almost outside of like the time and space because he's like going through all of the process of thinking about it while they're getting their asses handed to them.
Bullet time.
Yeah, exactly. Cas bullet time. That is such a good way of putting it. But yeah, I just despise a freeze frame.
Slow it down, man. Don't like do the really, really extreme Matrix slow down. Let's do that. Rather than, because it was such a bad freeze frame too for this guy. Like, his mouth is open in a weird way. I was just like, I'm sorry, dude. I don't know what your name is, but like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, deeply unserious behavior. Yeah. I do want to say though that in this like scene, I am, everything is DSDL. Okay, I don't make the rules. It just is. Everything is, because Cas is trying to justify to himself helping the Winchesters in this situation. And he says Crowley wouldn't like it, of course. And then the camera points at Dean specifically. Right? And he says, but they were my friends. And I'm like, they? This is Dean Winchester you're showing me on screen. I can see through you. So, yeah.
It's
pointed.
You'll notice this throughout the seasons, Annabelle, that this happens many a time.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
It's been happening for two seasons. Yes.
The infamous one that Jay is talking about is when Cas says, I love you, camera points to Dean. All of you. She's everybody else.
This means nothing. There is nothing to see here.
Nothing at all.
It's all right that
there aren't choices that were made.
We're the crazy ones, though.
Yeah, what do you mean? Assuming that when a camera is showing you something in a show, that is important? What do you mean? No, that's crazy. Exactly. Crazy.
So, yes. We're still in Ellsworth's house. I found that really hard to say. And as they're getting asses kicked by demons, Cass's voiceover is saying that Crowley sent his very best, and I was caught as much surprised by the rest of them. And it left me with another choice. I could reveal myself and smite the demons. Like I said, of course, Crowley wouldn't like it. But on the other hand, they were my friends. Dean. And Sam and Bobby, I guess. But then, like, we see him, like, appear, and he the double-handed smite, man. Love that.
Yeah. The classics, the fandom classics.
So you've seen the GIF, you know the smiting.
You know.
Yep. And he says,
For a brief moment, I was me again.
And I love like, he was saving the day. He was being Superman. Yeah. He was doing all the things. And Dean's like, oh, it's good to see you, Cas. Just like that. In that flirty tone, little wink.
Yeah. It's like...
It was.
Dean is the first one to speak, to address Cas, to do anything. Nothing to see here.
Sorry, to kind of go back to his line of, like, at the end of that monologue, I was me again. And he's like, there feels something really... that feels like there's something really heavy behind. Obviously there is. But, like, when he was him, Cas, right? He was following orders in a way, right? Because it was after making his choice that all of this happened, right? He made the choice to help the Winchesters and fall. He is being a soldier again in this moment.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I feel like me again. And I'm just like, no, you don't need to be a soldier to be you. Like, you're evolving. You don't need to go backwards. You can carry on, like, making choices and being wrong in your choices, but learning from them.
See, I read it almost the, like, kind of opposite, in that, like, he thinks that he's being so, like, the plan with Crowley is him saving everybody, right? And everything hinges on this plan with Crowley. So if he was to go and save them now, he puts in jeopardy saving the world. But then he makes the choice to do it anyway and save Dean, Sam, and Bobby. So it's him making that, like, choice for himself of, like, free will of, like, forget the plan, I just want to save my friends. Which is kind of what...
I do feel like he is making a choice that is more true to himself than what he's doing, because, like, through the entire time he's uncomfortable about what he's doing with Crowley. He feels backed into a corner. He's like, I don't have another choice. Like, this is what's good for heaven and for other angels and for all of these people. Like, this is how I stop my brother from restarting the apocalypse and destroying the world. And then there are my friends, and I kind of caused this issue of, like, them dying. I mean, I didn't, like, really, because it's, you know, they just kind of want to murder Crowley and he's trying not to die. But, like, here he's like, it feels like he's being true to himself in a way. That, like, oh, I'm trying to make a selfish choice that could potentially lead to everything coming crashing down, and I'm gonna still make it because I still care about these people.
Yeah,
it's very true. Yeah,
but I do agree that the read of, like, you know, he's snapping back into a created position for himself is also accurate, because, like, he was created to watch over Dean Winchester, and here's a question of, like, is that something, like, you are able to be put in a position where you are created to do something and you are told by someone to do something, and then have, like, that moment of, like, getting free will and still deciding that doing that thing that you were created to do is right for you. You just do it for different reasons. But there is something, like, definitely there to explore of, like, is it something about Cas being comfortable in this position because he wants to, you know, because he cares, because he has all of these inner reasons to do so, or because it's that comfortable position of, I know what I'm supposed to do because that was what I was created to do. And this is like mission number 1.
Sorry to make this even longer than on this one line than it already is. But the thing is that him protecting Dean is kind of almost the exact opposite of what he was meant to do, because we get that line from Chuck that says, you came off the line with a crack in your chassis. You like when I told him to, you know, when you were supposed to kill him, every other version of you did, right? The fact is that actually saving Dean has always been Cas breaking out of what he was supposed to be doing. So that's why he feels so much like himself again. It's Destiel all the way down. The layers all the way down.
New children's book, Destiel all the way down.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, also, like you say, the movement of back into a soldier as well is just comfortable, right? It's like putting on an old coat. Yeah. Like smiting demons, kicking ass, saving the Winchesters.
Yeah, there are layers. There are unfortunately layers. Mm-hmm. Why does this show have so many layers?
I know, like this. I know I caused this hang up on this one line, but it does. It's
there.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so
heavy. Yeah.
Heavy. Yeah.
And it does feel like very identity creating. Like, you know, it's like I feel like that's a profound thing to say. Of like, I feel like me. Like, what are the things that make us feel not like us? Why do we allow ourselves to be put in situations? What are the like causes for us to end up in situations that make us feel like we are not who we are, who we feel true to? So yeah, it's absolutely.
And then he immediately gets validation from Dean by saying it's good to see you.
Yep.
So he made the right choice,
because Dean's telling him he made the right choice. So
listen, nobody ever claimed that Destiel was a healthy relationship. Okay?
No one ever did. Nobody should be getting into that.
Well,
situation.
You have to learn.
But then, like,
we all have that one.
The one, So Sam says, like, you know, perfect timing, Cas. And he's like, oh, I'm glad I found you. I came with news. So he's kind of still pretending that he's like just arrived, right? He hasn't been there the whole time. And he goes, I firmly believe Crowley is alive. Love that. He's so bad at lying.
He's so bad.
People can sometimes rib on Misha's acting, which I never have, by the way. I think he's a great actor. But to be able to play someone lying badly, I think is really hard.
I also think that like Cas here in this situation is aware of the fact that he's not good at lying, so he's resorting to half-truths because it is correct. He does indeed firmly believe that Crowley is alive. That is not the revelation he has that he could share, but that is a true statement.
His brain's still catching up with the things that he's trying to tell them, so he's like starting up. It's such a it's lying on the go. So Dean replies like, you think? And then he sort of turns to everyone and is like, Cas saved our lives. What do we say? And they're all like, oh, I think we owe you an apology. And again, like Cas is playing dumb. It's like, you know, turns out they were counting Crowley this whole time behind his back. We're really sorry because you're clearly not evil. Again, he's so bad. He's so bad at lying. But Dean is kind of helping him in his lie because he's like, yeah, it's crazy. Like, you can never have been evil. Like, of course I was right.
Yeah. Dean wants to believe it's so bad.
Is pushing everyone else into this. And like Bobby is trying to explain, like, you know, you torched the wrong bones. Like, we kind of need an explanation for that. But like, we were wrong, I guess. Like, because Dean kind of gives him a look. It's like, we were wrong. So they're all apologizing and stuff. And even Dean says, like, I hope you can forgive us. Like, to be fair, Dean, you're the least amount of forgiveness here. Like, you were on his side the whole time. So Cas says, wonders never cease. They trusted me again, but it was just another lie. So, but it wasn't, I don't think this was a lie. I think they genuinely, like, until he kind of outed himself with the whole, like, line he says, I think Dean genuinely did believe that it was fine now. I don't think this was a lie.
Yeah.
I think so too.
I think that he's more commenting on the fact that, like, he's gotten forgiveness for something that he does not deserve forgiveness for. Because it's like he's gotten an apology that he does not deserve because everything that's being said, like, they're apologizing for these things that we believed about you are untrue, and we are sorry for, like, misjudging your character. And he's like, you apologized to me so beautifully. It is a shame that you were entirely correct about my character, though. Like,
you're right. I read it wrong. I think you're completely 100% right that it's him that's lying, not them. Absolutely.
I do think that this situation is devastating also in that way that Dean, I can honestly remember 2 instances when Dean apologizes to Cas for something. I don't think Dean apologizes a lot for things that he does that hurt other people. And here, obviously, he was not incorrect in his assessment. But to be in a situation where, like, you have this person that you care so deeply about, and this person hurts you and does not, try to make it right. And then here, this person is trying to make it right, and you're like, shit, fuck, shit.
Right, yeah.
Oh, damn it, I was still lying. Yeah.
He's still holding back a lot.
Yeah.
He's holding back everything.
Everything. You're right.
He's given nothing.
Yeah, he's given up nothing. You're right. Yeah.
Look at him standing there giving nothing. Sorry, it's just not.
Not even face.
Go on, girl, give us nothing.
So, Cas says, like, it's forgotten, and Dean's like, thanks, and Sam's like, yeah, thanks, Cas. And then Cas just like, oh, why, man? You were so close.
And when he says this line, I actually gasped out loud, even though I knew it was coming.
Yeah,
I literally I couldn't stop my reaction.
Yeah.
It is a little absurd, though. I know. Superman going to the dark side. I'm still just Castiel.
So the line, the secondhand embarrassment is real. I was crying, screaming at the screen. Yep. No, Cas, don't do it. Even though, again, doomed in the narrative, he's always going to do the thing.
I will say, though, I found it when I first watched it. I remembered, and going into this episode, I also knew that it was coming, and I remembered having that feeling the first time that I watched it. It felt to me like a leap that the Winchesters made when Cas referenced that. But then I kind of thought about it, because it's like, it's one line. It's like, how much can you suss out about a reference? And at first I thought it was just a reference. Coincidences when you reference the same thing happened, but then when I was rewatching it now, I was like, no, this was a very specific reference to make. And also, Cas is not known as the reference guy, so the chances of him knowing that reference. But then I was like, okay, no, but like, what if he was listening in and he used that reference, and he then acted out the entire scene that just happened with like this is revelation for me that you think that that I am working with Crowley. Then like there really isn't a non-insidious reason for doing that.
Especially since it's like it's probably within days that this reference was made as well.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem with it is that in that same conversation, they were saying that they were basically hunting Crowley. They already knew he was alive. And Cas is already coming to this conversation saying, oh, I've just discovered he's alive. So they know. Yeah.
Like the logical explanation is like, if he heard that conversation and they were saying like, oh, he's working with Crowley and Crowley is alive and all of that, and he wasn't working with Crowley and this was news to him, he would pop into the room and be like, what the fuck do you mean he's alive? What the fuck do you mean I'm working with him? Like, what's happening?
Right. It hurts my heart. And again, Cas never makes pop culture references, so it automatically stands out. No. And Dean even tests him because he says the Superman line, and then Dean says, I guess we can put away the kryptonite. And he's like, exactly. And like, Cas shouldn't know what that means. Yeah. So, yeah.
Exactly.
And he even says, of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was all over right then, just like that.
Yeah, you done ruined it.
Yeah.
So back at Crowley's lab, Cas is confronting him angrily that he sent demons after the Winchesters. Crowley says,
You kill my hunters. Why can't I kill you?
Banger after banger after banger. This guy knows his stuff.
Cas says, they're my friends. And Crowley says, you can't have friends, not anymore. I mean, my God, you're losing it. When Cas says he's fine, Crowley's like, yeah, you're the very picture of mental health. Come on. You don't think I know what this is all about? Oh, God, this is... Okay, no, I have to calm down a second. Because this is like... So Cas is like, enlighten me. Now, Crowley says the big lie. And I thought that he's in love with Dean. And then I realised that's not what he was talking about.
But isn't it?
He's like, the Winchesters still buy it, that there's the good Cas, the righteous Cas. As long as they still believe it, you get to believe it.
Well, I got news for you, kitten. A whore is a whore is a whore.
I want that one on a t-shirt.
I have that in my notes, and I would like to just say that we get to say that, but we don't get to say shit on this show.
Right. I know. Or point guns at people.
A whore is a whore is a whore.
A whore is a whore.
Really?
I mean, it's coming from a demon, right? What do you expect?
No, but the demon that cannot say shit.
Like,
true.
I don't know. I love it. I love this line. It's so iconic. I'm surprised there isn't a t-shirt. Can we make it? Can I have it? I would like a t-shirt that says a whore is a whore is a whore. Oh, like, I would just like that. I'll wear it
make
out.
it for you, Megan. I'll do it. We'll put it on this podcast.
Yes, let's do it.
We'll do it.
Cas shoves Crowley against that wall, and I think he's like frightened and a little turned on. Like,
wouldn't we all?
Honestly,
yeah, no.
It was. There were scare boners going on all over the place.
100
this episode.
This is the first time in this episode, I don't know if ever, but like in this episode for sure, that Cas does like use the thing you talked about, Annabelle, previously. Like the fact that he is taller, he is stronger, he is like the quote unquote superior power-wise being to this like sleazy demon who's fighting, like scrabbling for power basically. And it is scary.
like,
It certainly is.
so he threatens him. He's like, you know, if you kill them or if you touch a hair on their head, I will end this arrangement. I thought arrangement was an interesting word. Very good omens, if we're still allowed to talk about good omens these days. It says our arrangement, everything. I'm still an angel and I will bury you. And then he just disappears. Hence, it says, I asked myself, what was I doing with this vermin?
And this is probably the first time, the next line that Crowley says is probably the first time that like he is thrown off guard. Like,
This is not how synergy works.
Well, the Winchesters always put a wrench in the works. We know this.
And he knew this. That's why he was trying to isolate
Middling
Cas from them,
Winchesters.
right? Because he knew they were going to mess with his plan.
Yeah.
And the way he looks at the tile behind him, like the broken tile, he kind of looks, I'm a bit over my head here, you know, with Cas. He's kind of a loose cannon cop. Maybe that he can't control him as much as he thought he could. And yeah, so Cas says, what was I doing with this vermin? As if I didn't already know the answer. So we go back in time to Cas, and it says, he says again, Raphael was stronger than me. I wouldn't survive a straight fight. So it's all about him winning the fight, right? Protecting everybody. Yeah. So we get another time shift, and it's Cas. This is...
just something came to mind. Like, you said I wouldn't survive this straight fight. This is Cas's version of Sam drinking the blood and making all of the choices with Ruby.
Is. Do you know what though? Dean is so much more ready to believe that Cas wouldn't do that than he was for Sam.
I know. He knows Sam better than he?
He also has a more realistic approach to Sam, because he's like, this shithead makes mistakes. And with Cas, he's like, no, my little guy.
Yeah, it is the same.
And I mean, there's also, like, you're looking at it also, Cas is quote unquote perfect to Dean, right? In a way, because he is an angel.
Yeah.
He doesn't like angels, but he likes this angel. He is seen on time and time again, which again he's mentioned in this episode, saving them over and over again. And what does Dean value more than anything? People saving people.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So he's elevated Cas more than he has Sam, because he's had to save Sam so many
And he's
times.
his brother. Like, you're always going to look at your brother and be like, maybe you are evil.
It's like I can conceive of a situation where you in fact would not be the greatest.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. No, you're right though. And they all do go through this, right? Because there's Sam with the demon blood, there's Cas with the souls, and then there's Dean with the mark of Cain. Okay, so we go skewy in time. We see this is you're not heavily on Tumblr, Annabelle, so you wouldn't know this, but this is a very infamous scene of Cas watching Dean rake leaves.
Rake leaves. It's referenced everywhere all the time.
All the fanfic.
I have a little note saying Dean raking leaves, my beloved.
He's doing the thing, though, that I was literally complaining about like 2 weeks ago. He's putting fine leaves that would decompose on the ground into plastic bags. Horrendous, should be banned. And that is my climate tip of the day. Perfectly compostable leaves. So he's doing that. And Cas is looking at him like he hung the moon raking these leaves. So he says, I went to an old friend for help, but watching him, I stopped.
Everything he sacrificed. And I was about to ask him for more.
I love that Cas assumes that Dean would help him, because he would. But like, it's also, it's also telling of their friendship during the apocalypse that he thinks Dean would as well, like, help him.
Yeah. This is I think also beautifully juxtaposed with the fact that Dean, like at the beginning of that season when he was raking those leaves and he was like living that life with Lisa, he was so deeply unhappy. Yeah. Because he was not like, at some point, like he does over time become ready for this kind of life, for the hunter retirement, all of that stuff. Here he is not ready for that, and he does miss all of these, he does miss his old life, he misses his brother, he misses Cas. This is, I think, like the nail in the coffin that we find out, like, oh, Cas was around, because like Dean, the entire time that was going on, Dean was like, oh no, Cas isn't around, Cas is busy, Cas is rebuilding heaven, I cannot ask him to come hang out with me because he's doing important things, and and I cannot be selfish about that. And this is juxtaposed by Cas being like, oh no, Dean is busy, Dean is doing things for himself now, I cannot be selfish like that and ask him for to come hang out. So it's like, it's
and it's interesting that well, it's not interesting, we know why Cas went to Dean and not Sam.
Yeah.
Because he could have gone to Sam for the same advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And probably would have got told the same thing.
Or a better thing, to be honest. Like a more, maybe, objective thing.
Yeah. I mean, also, with Soulless Sam, it might have been a bit
no, you're right.
more tricky at that time. But he would have probably caught on maybe a bit faster that there was something wrong with Sam.
If Cas showed up in front of Soulless Sam without, like, a motive or Dean or whatever, do you think he would have gotten like shot on sight?
I don't think so. Soulless Sam's very out for himself. I don't see how it would have been advantageous to him. If he would have dragged him into whatever was going on with him, to be honest, I think.
That's fair.
But then Cas could have gone to Bobby as well. They've got that whole network of hunters that could have helped them in some way. But yeah, you're right, he went to Dean. Yeah. So Crowley appears and interrupts Cas's. I don't know, what was he even doing? Like,
creepily staring. That is the only thing that can be said about that.
But, I mean, Dean just has everybody watching him, because obviously Crowley was there watching him too.
It's so awkward. Like, if he knew.
How does that man do anything without feeling so self-conscious? Like, this is my peak generalized anxiety situation, except I didn't have a literal person like on my shoulder all the time. Like,
that is why Dean relaxes so much in the bunker, because it's so well warded that Cas has to at least come in through the front door. Like that.
And Cas cannot fly by that point, so it's like, oh, you cannot do this to me anymore. Like,
so Crowley says, Castiel, Angel of Thursday. Not your day, is it? I love that line. Crowley's trying to recruit him. I love this.
I want to help you, help me, help ourselves.
Cas is so funny when he wants to be, because he's like, you want to make a deal? I'm an angel, you ass. I love that.
Another classic Cas line.
So he says, like, he doesn't have a soul to sell. And then Crowley's like, that's it, the souls. It's all about the souls. And kind of offers him Raphael's head on a pike, talking about happy endings for all of us, with all the possible entendres intended.
And we wonder why I keep reading, like, they're on a break and this is a rebound thing.
Crowley's doing that sexy sleaze. And so, yeah, he's like, come on, like, come and talk to me. Cass's voiceover says, I was no fool. You are, Cas, I'm sorry, but you are. I knew who Crowley was and what he did, but I was smarter than him, stronger. I see now I was prideful, and in all likelihood, I was a fool. So that's what I mean about agreeing with Cas, like 2 seconds after later he says something.
Yeah.
So Crowley takes him to hell, and it's an endless queue of people. It's kind of like Beetlejuice, but worse. So yeah, basically Crowley's reconfigured hell into an infinite line that you just have to wait in, and then when you get to the front, you go back to the beginning. And that, to be fair, that sounds horrendous. Like, just the standing alone.
Yeah.
I know. God, your knees and your legs. Ugh.
No, my lower back could not do it.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So Cas doesn't even recognize hell because it's so different. And Crowley explains that, like, it wasn't really working, the old system, because basically, like, people were getting kicks out of it. And do you think that they make demons this way, standing in line? Or is he just making bureaucrats? Bureaucratic demons?
Is there a difference?
I just wondered at what point in the line do you become a demon? Like, how many times do you have to go around?
Well, does Crowley want to make new demons, though?
That's true. He just wants the souls.
He wants souls. And demons don't have those.
So, no.
So probably not.
Interesting. That is an interesting thought, yeah.
Yeah.
So Crowley pitches to him about what you're going to do about Raphael.
What can I do besides submit or die?
Submit or die? What are you, French? How about resist?
I love that fucking line. Submit or die. What are you, French?
Terrible.
Oh.
Terrible. Awful.
Coming from an English person too.
Criminal.
We have a rivalry with the French.
Yes.
So Cas explains that he's not strong enough to defeat Raphael. And Cas is like, well, not on your own, but like there's a lot of angels swooning over you, God's favorite. He says, buddy boy, you've got what they call sex appeal. And Cas says, thank you. Get to the point. Like, I know. I know. I'm all this.
I think as much as I love your interpretation of it, I think this is Cas's, like, I don't know what to do with this, so I'm just going to take it at face value. This sounds like a compliment, so I'm going to treat it like a compliment.
So true. You're right. I agree with that.
So this is where, like, I was saying earlier that Crowley knows so much.
Yeah.
So much about what's going on in heaven. And I'm just like, how? I know he's a deal maker. He can get information this way and the other. But, like, this is, like, highly confidential angel business. He hasn't tapped into angel radio yet. There is something going on here that I kind of wish was explained as to why he knows so much.
I think we're just supposed to, like, assume he's, like, got his fingers in many pies. Like, he's just spy master general, just great at getting information, you know, like head of MI5 kind of situation in hell. And he's just, like, doing it, right? I think we're just supposed to believe he's competent, I guess. But I agree with you. There's a bit missing.
But then we don't really see that because, you know, he's been torturing monsters all season and still hasn't found purgatory, but yet he can find out all this information about heaven.
I do wonder if this is not because he knows things, but because he's like making assumptions and hoping that he's right to be able to, like, you know, coming with the idea that he is a master manipulator, right? Those are like logical leaps to make, but they're not like inconceivable to make, of like, you came back, so maybe, you know, angels are gonna have a bit of a thing for you. I know that you don't want to be a leader, you enjoy being a soldier, whatever. And then, like, Michael is away and Lucifer is out of the question, so who's gonna be the next, like, possible leader of of heaven? That guy. So then, like, you know, maybe those are logical leaps. Maybe he's trying. Maybe he's testing the water and he's just making correct assumptions.
I can also kind of believe that there are maybe some, like, angel defectors as well that are feeding them information, because their faith has been so tested. There must have been at least, like, one or two or several that were like, I'm out of this. This is clearly not the game, and could be feeding information to the demons. Yeah, I reckon there must be, like, a flow of information between heaven and hell. I think we've always assumed that's kind of the case, but then it wasn't really true in previous seasons because heaven had no idea what was going on.
It's really quick turnover. Like, an angel falls, becomes human, doesn't know they need to eat, dies, goes to hell.
Yeah, I mean, believable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is supposed to be, like you said, believe that Crowley's competent, but you're right, he doesn't really show that he often is. So yeah, he's encouraging Cas to be a leader. He's like, get your army, kick out Raphael. And Cas is like, you're proposing I start a civil war? And he's like, yeah. And Cas says, you're asking me to be the next Lucifer. Crowley says, please, Lucifer is a petulant child with daddy issues.
Cas, you love God. God loves you. He brought you back. Did it occur to you that maybe he did this so you could be the new sheriff upstairs?
Like, the manipulation, like, he's telling him everything that he wants to hear about, like, you are chosen by God. You are on a righteous mission. Yeah. Kind of what every angel probably wants to hear, you know, that you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they discuss more around, like, how they're going to do it. Crowley reveals that he knows where purgatory is. So basically he can get this kind of well of untapped monster souls that can power both of them up so they can defeat Raphael. But because he's only asking for like 50%, it kind of keeps their power balanced as well. So the idea is that the fallout would be they would work together to maintain the balance between heaven and hell, but kind of like respectively keep their power in both spheres. It kind of is a good deal, to be fair. if you know that Crowley's like not going to backstab you, it would be a good deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, he says it here. Who would you rather have, like, in charge down here, the devil you know?
And it's totally true. Like, you kind of would want to make that deal. He's going to keep Lucifer and Michael in the cage because it's no good to Crowley to let them out. And I guess we just hope that he holds on to power, and he will do that if he has these souls. It's kind of like, it's a good deal. Just to show you how serious I am, I'll float you 50,000 souls from the pit, so presumably redeeming people from hell up to heaven. Just to show, like, basically to cement his power, because he can take them up to heaven and the angels be like, whoa, you're amazing.
Or is it a display of power? Like, God has chosen me.
Yes.
He's even empowered me to lead.
Because he does manage to smite old Raphael with that power, right? That he gets from those 50,000 souls. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Crowley even, like, manipulating him further, as well as, like, righteous cause, you can beat heaven, etc. Throws in Sam and Dean as well, because he says, it's either this or the apocalypse. Everything you've worked for, everything that Sam and Dean has worked for has gone. You can save us, Castiel. God chose you to save us. It's laying on so thick that anyone other than Cas, who is quite naive, would see past it, I feel.
Yeah.
And I think Cas sees it now because he says, I wish I could say I was clean of pride in that moment. So he knows he's laying on thick.
I mean, Crowley is master manipulator, so he knows what buttons to push.
Absolutely. Yep.
And as I said, Cas then takes that power that he's just gained from Crowley, because presumably he agreed to the deal, and turns up at Raphael's door and says, there'll be no apocalypse. You're either with Raphael or you're with me, and blasts him with that power. He says, and so went the long road of good intentions, the road that brought me here. And so we go back to the Ellsworth house, and Dean is praying to Cas again. Oh, why's it got to be Dean? And says,
You'll know why.
Because he only replies to him as shown, because earlier Sam tried to pray to him and he was just like, he was like, that's never going to work. I'll try. Before he'd even finished.
Yep.
So he's like, come on, you need me for a little powwow down here. So come down, and Cas immediately appears. And Bobby says, oh, Johnny on the spot, which I think he's directing it at Cas, but I think he's saying it to Sam and Dean, like his imposition, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they explain that they're still there because they had to bury the bodies, and that they have a plan, and like, come and have a look at the plan. And yeah, they light him up, full holy oil circle, and it's so sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dead.
Yeah.
Dead. I am dead. I have been killed. It's a murder.
Cas is, surprised and betrayed feeling, I guess. Which does he have a right to be? Feelings are going to be had.
Yeah. Is he surprised, or is he more like disappointed in that, like, both in himself and in the fact that, oh, this is where the situation is? Is it that like feeling where you have this like worst case scenario, and then you're kind of disappointed once you get to it that it's actually coming into fruition? That like, oh, this is indeed the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Shit.
I think it's actually surprise. I do, because he doesn't know that he messed up. He knows in retrospect that he messed up, but at the time he didn't. So I think it is genuine surprise.
Okay. Yeah. I can see it. Yeah.
I know the feeling of being caught out, and I know that sinking pit in your stomach, and you're like, oh no. That's what Cas is feeling.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Dean says, we got to talk, and is about Superman and kryptonite. So I think it really is the kryptonite part that
I agree.
clued him in.
Fucking Chekhov's Superman.
Love that.
Bobby asks, how did you know that I said that? And how long have you been watching us? And Dean then says,
You know who spies on people, Cas? Spies.
I just, Dean just has a way with words.
Right, it's so perfect.
He recently said, accidents don't happen on accident.
Yes. Yes. But he's correct. He's 100% correct. And we know what he means. And it's, that is, Spies do spy on people.
Cas is like in a panic, sort of, okay, just wait, like, I don't even know what you mean.
How is it so, next to godliness clean in here?
How exactly did Crowley trick you with the wrong bones?
He puts it on them first by saying it's hard to understand.
Rude.
Yeah.
Kind of realizes he's messed up and says it's hard to explain. Let me go, let me out, I can. And Dean cuts him off. So he really is in like this spiral of like, just wait, no, hang on, just like, and then you have to just watch this.
If you haven't,
even
please
the audio is not going to be enough.
Yeah,
because Dean says, I feel like I'm going to cry. Dean says,
look me in the eye and tell me you're not working with Crowley.
Cas is looking at him and then looks away. And he just says, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. It's and I will bring this back around to the, like, I will take it to a place that's deeply unserious. The note that I have for this, that you're diddling my ex while we're on a break, eyes.
Say it isn't so.
Yeah.
It's the like, not only the how dare you, but also the how dare you with him. Like, of all of the people that you could betray me for, this is the one that you chose to do that with. Like a double betrayal.
Again, Dean is the only person who could get away with asking this and actually getting an answer. He would have straight up lied to both Sam and Bobby's face. Like 100.
Absolutely, he would.
Yep. And I think Cas doesn't want to lie to Dean beyond the fact, love. But like, because Cas has seen what making deals behind people's backs does to relationships within the Winchesters, because you look at how they reacted when Bobby made a deal with Crowley, and then again bring it back to Sam and Ruby, like how Dean reacted there too. It's just like, I think at that moment it might have clicked a little bit with Cas that he'd really fucked up.
I wonder if he thought in this moment, if I lie to him now, this is going to be unsalvageable, like, because they already know. So if I straight up lied to him now, this isn't like, there's no coming back from this.
I think he already thinks that this is unsalvageable. And I think this shows a couple of lines later where he kind of pivots away from Dean entirely and starts addressing Sam. And he tells, I gasped out loud. I forgot entirely that this is something that is in this episode. I gasped when he said this. He told Sam,
I am the one who raised you from perdition.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that too. Yes. Oh, my God.
Yeah. I was like, you did not take this thing that you have with Dean, that's like the bond that you have, and applied it to someone else while he's in the room and he's looking at you because you think that you can, like, no. I was shook.
Again, I think this is Cas's attempt at being manipulative, but he doesn't know how to do it. So he's using the wording that he used with Dean, but then also in this season, he's talked about having a profound bond with Dean. You don't see that with Cas. No. With Sam. So it's not going to hit in the same way.
And it didn't, because we all forgot about it.
Right. Yeah. But so before that line, we'll just go through this real quick.
Yeah.
Dean's like confronting him that, you and Crowley have been going after Purgatory together this whole time. And Cas tries to explain that he did it to protect you, to protect all of you. Starts with Dean specifically. Sam says, protect us how? By opening a hole in Monsterland. One got through, which was Eve, and it was bad. He tries to justify it, saying it's about the souls. I can stop Raphael. You have to trust me. Sam says, trust you. How the hell are we supposed to trust you?
Yeah.
And then, I'm still me. I'm still your friend. Sam, I'm the one who raised you from perdition. And Sam's like,
wait. Did you bring me back soulless on purpose?
How dare you? Sam Winchester. Why would Cas do what possible motivation would he have for doing that? I know they don't trust him in this moment, but all they so far know that he's and this is actually what annoyed me the most about this whole scene, is they don't once actually allow him to explain himself. He never gets a chance to actually tell them why he's doing it. To be fair, Cas is bad at explaining it, but he doesn't. They don't give him the space all the time to do it.
Well, but I mean, emotions like this they're not, it's never a pretty debate. It's never like I've presented my argument, no, you do it. It's it's absolutely a barrage of questions of how could you? Why did you? You don't want to listen to an explanation by that point. They've made up their mind how they want to feel about it, and now they're just feeling specifically about it.
I'm just so annoyed for Cas. Sorry.
And I debate whether Cas would even tell them the whole truth even at this point. No, because he is at his life is at risk right now. He has no idea what their intentions are. He still wants to protect them, still wants to make sure that the apocalypse doesn't happen, which means he has to get out of this alive. So he might have to say anything to make sure that happens.
You're so right, because they're interrupted in this, and like, what would they have done with Cas if the demons hadn't attacked? Would it be Sam and Bobby torturing Cas back at his place? Like, what would have happened? No, it doesn't bear thinking about.
Right. What was obviously their plan was something. Like they wanted confirmation that they wanted answers.
Yeah.
But they weren't prepared to hear the answers that they got. And when the Winters are not prepared for answers that they don't want,
they get stabby.
People start dropping.
Yeah. There's also the fact that, like, clearly they did not expect to do anything more than just to talk. Like, they were expecting that they would get the answers that they needed to get after a conversation. Like, they were still putting that faith in Cas. Because, like, yes, they like, backed him up into a fiery corner that he couldn't get out of. But then there was nothing else there. Like, there wasn't, weaponry, angel blades, chair, nothing like that. So
I like to think they had good intentions.
Yeah. I know. Me too.
And what is hell paved with?
And the hurt in Cas's voice when he says, "How could you think that?" is
my baby boy.
It is. Sam does say, "Well, I'm thinking a lot of things right now, Cas." Cas goes on to say, like, Raphael will kill us all. He'll turn the world into a graveyard. I had no choice. So you and I, Amy, have talked about basically this next section. I don't know if I want to go through it first or talk about what you said first.
Okay.
I think I want to talk about what you said first. So, like, you were saying that Dean comes off incredibly self-righteous in this moment. Well, I agree. I don't agree fully, but I can't articulate right now why that is. It's still, like, percolating in my brain. It might come back the next time that we record, because I watched it today and I was like, I didn't know whether I wanted to sleep on it or watch it today and get my like a reaction. So I think I need to sit on it a little bit longer to really think about why I don't fully agree. And I think it's because what Cas says, it's complicated.
Yeah, and I think that hits the nail on the head, because he does come across like extremely self-righteous. I feel like his feelings in this are incredibly valid, because what he sees, his limited perspective, is like, my friend did not come to me with important information, and then my friend went behind my back to work towards something that I actively am working against. And, with a person that we both know is bad news. And I am hurt by that. At the same time, Dean's estimation of, you had choices, you just made the wrong ones, is at the very least baseless. And, like, you could argue that it's incorrect. Because, like, the choices that Cas had were, do something to stave off the apocalypse versus don't. Like, in a lot of ways, like, this is in Cas's, like, from Cas's perspective, that's kind of the choices that he had. Like, I think that they're missing each other a little bit, because Dean is like, you had choices, you just made the wrong ones. And Cas is like, fuck you, I had no choices, I had to do this. So it's like, they both speak from a lack of context of how the reality looks for the other person in this situation.
I think it's the lack of self-awareness on Dean's part that gets me. Because Sam and Dean have always have choices as well.
Yeah.
And one could also argue that they have always made the wrong choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of their choices hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think Dean is still in that mindset of, like, if you made the other choice of not working with a demon, you would have saved us this betrayal.
Yeah.
And we would be good. Whereas you made this other choice, but it saved a lot of people, but it's hurt us.
Yes.
This is what
maybe.
As you like, we're all like off each other here a second. So like, yeah, it's because he went and did a Dean, and he went and made a deal with a demon behind their back for the greater good. And Dean is nothing if not a massive hypocrite.
Oh, absolutely.
He can spot those bad choices in other people, but not himself. And he does get very self-righteous about those bad choices to other people, and then doesn't seem to apply that to himself because he works on Dean law, where what he does, he's basically the Ron Swanson of like, I do what I want, like that kind of mindset. Because, and this is what annoys me about Dean's character, and like I don't say that very often. His choices are always right, though, aren't they? Like he'll always justify them, and no matter how bad they are, like selling your soul and getting a year in return, like that's a bad choice, Dean. You shouldn't have made that choice. And people rightly got angry at you for it. Like, but then when he sees these, like, so people do the exact same thing that he does, he gets real angry to the point that like breaks friendships and trust, and sees it as a huge betrayal. That they didn't immediately clue him in, knowing that he would get really angry and possibly break their friendship. It's kind of a lose-lose with Dean. Like, you either tell him and he gets really angry at you, or you don't tell him and he also gets really angry at you. Like, I do understand the position Cas is coming from.
Yeah. I've seen someone's opinion, like, floating around that, like, the worst thing that John Winchester has ever done to, like, his kids is teach them to lie to one another, because a lot of the problems that they run into could be avoided if they just talked to one another. Like, obviously this wouldn't make for interesting show because conflict is necessary, but like this is kind of from this from this situation, right? Because like it's not necessarily that these were the wrong choices to make, because objectively speaking it is important to save the fucking world, but like the way you go about doing things is shady and bad, and don't do it. Like, it's just wrought with so much self-loathing and everything. And so it's like, I think it would be a different situation if the moment that Cas was contacted by Crowley and Crowley was like, we gotta do this, Cas went to Dean and was like, I see no other way out. This is the problem. This is the solution that he's like proposing, and stuff like that. And I feel like it would be a completely different conversation then. Because then Dean would, A, feel like he had input, B, feel like he could protect Cas from things, and then, you know, being on the things. So.
You're right. This is a John Winchester problem. Is that he's essentially made Dean a micromanager, that he needs to know everything that's going on all the time, or how can he protect all the people if he doesn't know all the things that are going on all the time. So ultimately it doesn't matter about his decisions, because he just needs to know all the decisions everyone else is making so he can mitigate those and plan for them. And that is a specific anxiety that John Winchester has put into his brain. I think you're right. This probably would have played out maybe the same, but he just needed Cas to tell him that was what's going on. And I think that's the betrayal. It's the being left out of the loop, not necessarily any of the actions at all. It's the trust.
Yes. But it's also, it's also something that he cannot absolutely articulate, right, to Cas, because that's like vulnerability that he's not willing to reveal to, I don't think even himself, let alone the entire room, but like to himself. It's easier to hide behind, like, I think what you're doing is wrong, than you hurt my feelings because you didn't trust me.
With that, like, he does turn that on to Cas by saying, like, well, you knew it was wrong because you kept it a secret.
Yeah.
That's John Winchester talking.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, keep secrets from one another, never keep a secret from me, because secrets hurt you when I don't know about them. But you don't gotta know shit, and also you don't gotta know shit about 100% each other. So
correct. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When crap like this comes around, we deal with it. Like we always have. What we don't do is we don't go out and make another deal with the devil.
Cool, Dean. Tell me when you stop doing that.
Yeah, right? Oh, wait, the show's over? Okay, that's when it stopped happening. Okay,
and then he died.
Sorry. Yeah. I also hate how quickly Cas submits to that thinking, because he says, it sounds so simple when you say it like that. Where were you when I needed to hear it?
He does do a little 360 afterwards, though. Like, really quickly. Because, like, he does submit to it, because it's like, where were you when I needed to hear it? And then Dean is like, I was right here, where were you? And then shit starts happening. And then Dean yells,
Damn it, Cas, we can fix this!
Dean, it's not broken.
and I'm dead, but that's besides the point.
I went back to listen to that, actually, because I was like, I thought I missed something. I thought, like, they were referring to something. So I was like, wait, did I hear this wrong? No. He just says, it's not broken.
I still love you. That's what he's really saying. Right? The betrayal doesn't mean I don't love you. It's not broken. We can fix this. Just come back. We'll get married. Let's have a baby.
I don't read it as that at all, actually. I think that this is like the ultimate. Dean is offering a hand. He's like, what we have going on, this entire situation is fixable. You just, what you gotta do is you have to trust me. You have to do what I want. You have to, come with me and stuff like that. And Cas is like, fam, I'm happy with the choices that I made. And he says it's not broken. And again, they do a complete, like, drive-by. Like, they do not meet on another issue.
I think you're right in that, like, Cas is making peace with his choices here, actually. I think you are right. That it's like, you don't need to fix this, basically. Like, I've got this kind of thing. With the, like, it's not broken.
It's because he knows that the way that Dean will try and fix it will not be
helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
Like, Dean's solutions are not actually very good solutions in the long run. Yeah. So that I think this is Cas trying to be like, leave it alone.
Yeah.
Like,
Dean is very much like fly by the seat of his pants kind of guy. He's like, I'm dealing with the problem that's immediately in front of me. I do not care about the big picture. And Cas is like, the big picture is the only thing that I have. And the details keep just falling apart in front of me.
It's also like, I can feel the frustration on Cas's part of like, you expect me to trust that you know what you're doing. Like, why don't you trust me to know what I'm doing, right? You're expecting all this trust. You're expecting me to tell you everything and all the things that are going on and that you're just going to make it right. Like, why can't I be the one who makes it right? Like, I'm going to fix this for you rather than you fixing it for me. Because that's kind of how relationships work. You kind of fix each other rather than it's like a one-sided thing. And you're right. There's just so much that's like left unsaid between them here. And it's hilarious that it's like all between, again, the whole, like, Ben Edlund must ship this because this whole conversation is just between them. Who knows where Sam and Bobby is? Like, I don't know. Are they left? Have they gone? Like, where are they? We see them run out at the end.
Irrelevant. Right? Irrelevant to the scene at large.
They've taken out their phone, they're tweeting, they're playing Candy Crush.
Right.
So before the not broken line, Dean does say that you should have come to us for help, and Cas just says maybe. Either Cas doesn't know how to fully explain the situation to them, or he knows that they will never, like Amy was saying, never see the bigger picture. Yeah. Because there is that whole bit in was it Mummy Dearest? Yeah, it was Mummy Dearest, where Cas gets in Dean's face about saving those two kids. That was a big thing that, like, you're trying to, and then Bobby's like, well, you can never tell the Winchesters what to do. They're going to do whatever they want. So I feel like there's a bit of Cas knows this. Yeah. Has always known this. Yeah. And therefore, like, part of the reason why he wants to go to an outside source, Crowley, is because he doesn't really want them in this bigger picture plan.
It's not like they have a great track record of listening to what he has to say.
True.
It's just
because they don't respect
right.
him.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they do fully respect Cas. They don't see him as like someone who can come up with plans and do things because he's always just a sidekick to them. Right? He's the third member of Team Free Will. He's he's the Robin to Dean's Batman. Like it's a lot. And I think all this put into context with him like watching Dean while he was with Lisa and deciding then like he was going to go to him, but he decided to not pull him back into stuff. And then, ultimately Dean did come back into hunting because of Sam. And by that point, things were already in motion that they maybe would have killed him over. He doesn't know that they wouldn't, really. He doesn't really know that. So there's a lot of nuance and, like I said, not of stuff not being said. And, like, it's a shame they can't just, like, mind whammy each other and be like, have my thoughts. Which I feel like is something that Cas could do if he wanted to.
I mean... So really, I feel like, his whole monologuing in this episode should have been to one of them. I felt maybe Bobby. Maybe Bobby was the person he should have confided into.
Yeah. But then, like we were saying, would he even get as far if he was monologuing to one of the Winchesters? Like, would he even get past, like, the destruction of Babel Tower, like
the tied to chairs, the cat move.
Yeah, tied to chairs, gagged
in the panic room. You're gonna listen to my story, bitches.
I mean, all that aside, as Dean leaves, the look. Can we talk about the look that they give each other across the fire? Look. That look back that Dean does to Cas is everything to me.
In my notes, the Destiel look over the shoulder.
I feel like this is the first time that we've really seen Cas yell in this way. There was something about the way that he was yelling, run, like you have to run, like the panic. Because he can't get to them. He can't get them out of this situation.
Yeah.
I don't know, that shot of Cas just close up again. Good job, Ben Edlund. We love you so much for this. But like, I felt it. I felt the panic of like,
run. You have to run now. Run.
I can't save you.
Even trapped. Even like thinking, his friends are thinking that he's betrayed them. Like them possibly planning to interrogate him. Whatever. He's still trying to save them. Through whatever means he can, and that's maybe who Cas is. Yeah, that scene is everything. I love it so much. I love the back and forth. I love the miscommunication between them. It just sums up so much of their relationship. I feel through all the seasons that they never quite talk to each other. Like they never really get on the same page. It's all just talking around each other, and I think there's something so tragic in that. And when they finally actually. Well, I mean, Cas does, Dean doesn't. When Cas finally actually, says directly what he wants, he dies.
Yep.
So what you're saying is that communication is a deadly sport and we should not partake?
Yeah, basically, don't do it. Apparently it's bad for you. So Crowley enters the Ellsworth house after all these smoky purple demons and says,
My. Playing with fire again.
He puts out the fire with a snap of his fingers, and Cas immediately starts saying, if you touch the Winchesters, because obviously all these demons are about. Kind of like, it's fine. I've proven my point. It's always your friends, isn't it, in the end? We try to change. We try to improve ourselves.
So as our friends are going to claw into our sides and then hold us back. But you know what I see here? The new God. The new devil working together.
Yeah. This is all manipulation.
Yes, absolutely. I also think that it's it's manipulation, yes, but it's also, I think, Crowley finally in this episode letting some of his subconscious bias seep into the conversation a little bit. He's judging the situation and he's drawing conclusions, and they are the wrong conclusions to draw from this.
Yeah, I say he wants Cas to be in the same position that he is, right? The isolation of it. Right. And it would kind of be perfect for him if they were in heaven, he was in heaven and Carly was in hell, and they're both equally isolated because they wouldn't really have anybody to fight for. So it'd be a perfect balance of... Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's true.
Basically, yeah.
So Castiel just says, enough, stop talking, get off my sight. And Kai's like, well, you're welcome, by the way. And he leaves. He says,
you know the difference between you and me? I know what I am. What are you, Castiel? What exactly are you willing to do?
Which is kind of, I guess, the premise of this whole episode. Who is Castiel? What is he willing to do? Yes. Thanks, Crowley, for summing it up for us. Back at Bobby's house, it's nighttime, and Cas, as at the beginning of the episode, Cas appears only to Dean in the nighttime, except he's in a different safe place. He's in Bobby's house rather than in the Impala. Though they have warded it this time against angels, but they did a crap job, apparently. Cas says after they talk about the angel proof, he says, I want you to understand. And Dean says he does understand, blah, blah, Raphael, right? Which is kind of massive. It's so insulting.
And so dismissive.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Of Cas's actual problems that he's dealing with right now. Cas says, I'm doing this for you, Dean. I'm doing this because of you. And Dean doesn't believe it. He says, because of me? Yeah, you've got to be kidding. Cas goes on to say, you taught me about freedom and free will. This conversation is so hard. It's so hard. Because Cas is being so... He is actually, for what, he is being quite forthright, and he's trying to explain, what has gone on, but not quite down to the nitty-gritty, more contextually. But Dean's not really a person for contextual stuff, so he's you just need to tell me what's going on. So lashes out in anger. And he says,
friggin' child, you know that? Just because you can do what you want doesn't mean that you get to do whatever you want.
And then they stop fighting, and pretty much, because Dean says, look.
I'm saying don't, just 'cause. I'm asking you not to. That's it.
The thing is, the problem I have with this, I keep saying the problem, but is Dean doesn't know what Cas is doing because he hasn't been able to say what he's doing. Or again, is this partly on Cas because he doesn't know how to communicate and he is contextualizing it rather than getting into the minutiae of the plan? But I don't think Dean wants to hear it either. No. I think he, because he just said, I'm asking you not to do it.
Yeah, not to do what? This is the same. I was shouting at the TV, not to do what, Dean?
Yeah, Cas presupposes that Dean is incapable of understanding, and Dean, presupposes that he not only understands, but he knows better than Cas.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm just... Is it just not to find purgatory, not to open purgatory? Is that the thing that he's asking him not to do? Or is he asking him not to work with Crowley? Because these are two very different things he's asking.
He still doesn't know about the souls. He doesn't realize that they want to take the souls out of purgatory. Is that something he's against as a concept? Because he doesn't know about it. So how can he be? It's really frustrating. Yeah. Cas says, I don't understand. Same as us, I understand what you're asking because you don't know what you're doing. But Dean says, look, next to Sam, you and Bobby are the closest things I have to family.
That you are like a brother to me. So if I'm asking you not to do something, you gotta trust me, man.
And it was so heartfelt and so lovely. And Cas just says, or what?
Yeah. I also took a little note because I am deeply unserious. I said, don't you are just like a brother to me, to my gay boy, please. Don't you do that.
It's so cool. And Dean says, "Oh, I have to do what I have to stop you." And this is the full breakup. This bit right here. Forget the bit in the fire. This is it.
Yeah.
Cas says, "You can't, Dean. You're just a man. I'm an angel." And Dean says, I've taken some pretty big fish. And they just say, I'm sorry. And that's it. That's their conversation. That's the breakup.
Yep. They're threatening each other. This is not the divorce arc because they're not married yet here. This is for sure a breakup. And this is what I have written in my notes. It's like that they have currently broken up because this is too big.
And we go back to Cas in the snow in the park, and he says, well, that's everything. He gives the rest of his little monologue, tragedy from a human perspective, but maybe the human perspective is limited. You talk about Dean, aren't you? Talking about Dean now. And then we realize that he's talking to God, and he says, like, I'm asking you one last time, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path?
You have to tell me. You have to give me a sign. Give me a sign. Because if you don't, I'm gonna do whatever I must.
And he's looking so anguished and so lost, and there's no sign because Chuck is a bastard, and it's beautifully shot, and I love it very much. It's a very good episode.
Telling silence from God.
Mm-hmm. And this is where I get annoyed with what Dean said earlier, literally a few lines earlier. He says you can't do whatever you want. Cas isn't doing whatever he wants. He's doing what he must.
Yeah.
It's two very, very different. He doesn't want to do this.
Yeah.
He wants to have free will. He wants to give free will to everybody.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lead the angels. He doesn't want to launch a war in heaven. He doesn't want his brother to be trying to like do Apocalypse 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever 0.0 it's on at this point. Like, he doesn't want any of it.
He's doing what he must.
Yeah. He's backed into a corner by manipulation or circumstance. And it's not to say that like he's a poor little meow meow who had no choices in the matter and he did everything correctly. Although I am, an apologist for these characters and I'll apologize until the day I die. But like, there have been bad things, but Dean does not even begin to understand because he hasn't asked.
Right. The fact that he assumes that Cas is doing what he wants. Yeah. As if this would be his like the choice that he would make if this is what he wanted.
Yeah. You're so right, actually. Because
what he wanted was to go to Dean, but he said, no, I don't want to bring you back in. That's what he wanted.
And that's what he should have said as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think it would have been heard either.
Yeah.
But
well, he did say it. He says, I did it for you, but that not plain enough.
Dean doesn't hear words historically. Dean sees action, end of. Like, if Cas showed up at his doorstep, did not say anything, and disappeared, Dean would be willing to hinge his entire worldview that Cas tried and clearly failed to communicate with him, and therefore everything that follows is not his fault at all on that single situation. But that hasn't happened, so he has nothing to anchor himself to.
Which I can now justify why we didn't see anything in this season. Okay, all right. Because we all know that this is Dean's like the rest of the show
absolutely
is Dean's perspective.
You're so right. So that's why we didn't see this coming until the actual betrayal happened. Right? You're so right.
Yep.
You're so right, because it's Dean's perspective. You're so right. Yeah.
This is why you have me on the show. I come here with correct opinions always.
I love this episode. I would rewatch this one in a heartbeat. I'd rewatch it now.
Yeah.
Like
me too.
Ben Edlund's just he so gets it. He so gets it.
Yeah.
I don't understand how he was never showrunner. Like, he so gets it.
And it doesn't insult you by drawing conclusions for you. Like, there is no big And this is exactly why XYZ happens. It just puts you, it assumes you're smart enough to understand what's going on, and just gives you the narrative. And it's a beautiful, like...
And just in terms of television, I find this type of television the most satisfying, where it doesn't like completely give you everything. Like, you have to kind of read into it and be like, oh my goodness, that's why I love Russell T Davis's Doctor Who, right? Like, it pings that part of my brain when everything starts to come together that I find amazing. Like, it feels good in the, I don't know, serotonin levels or whatever. But,
and like the idea of like, you can read this at face value, but also to know that there is further context to this, to understand what an unreliable narrator is, to understand like character motivations and stuff like that. It adds another layer of everything, but it's not required for comprehension either.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
It does, it makes it better, to be honest. Like, I love this episode so much.
And I think it was so important to have it from Cas's perspective.
Yes.
I don't think if we had had this episode in any other person's view, the sting would probably still be there.
Yes.
Somewhat. But like hearing like Cas's narration of the situation, and like you really start to feel the gravity of what's happening.
Yes. I also think that like alongside this, I think that if it wasn't from Cas's perspective, we would not feel good about Cas being, like, as a character. Because here you can clearly see that, like, Dean has wronged Cas in a way, like, by making assumptions and everything. And you can understand completely why Cas feels hurt by Dean, but also why Dean feels hurt by Cas. If this was shown from, like, the point of view of like Dean's anger, wrath, despair, and betrayal, this would be a completely different situation, and we would absolutely follow Dean into that rageful place against Cas. So I think that this is like the best way to be able to be like, and there are shades of grey, you know.
Absolutely.
The last few episodes, they were really like building Cas up to be this villain. Like, there were little bits and bobs, like in the last episode, especially with him ripping the head off that guy and telling them not to save children. Like, they were fully bigging him up to be the big bad of the season by that point. So I think this is perfectly timed after that to be like, no, look, these are why he's making the choices that he's making. Like, this is actually what's going on. And maybe you can find some sympathy for him. But yes, really good.
It recontextualizes the entire season pretty much.
It really does.
It does. Yeah.
Because I've said throughout the whole thing, like, the plot of season 6 is not the plot. Like, we need to wait to get to this point, and then you realize what the actual plot of season 6 is, and you're like, oh my goodness.
Yep.
But I don't think anybody expects Supernatural to like be that deep.
I don't think Supernatural expected Supernatural to be that deep.
So yeah, I love it, and it's.
I think. In a way that I feel like I have this hilarious image in my head that I find very funny, that like Ben Edlund got to this point of like the season up until that point was written. He's like, okay, what to do to bring my favorite boy back into graces? Like,
It's wild because at this point they must have been planning like Cas's send off, that they were going to kill him off, you know.
Yeah.
So
they wanted to turn him into a big bad, and then for you know, to have a tragic ending of like Dean is conflicted, but still he must, and it's like,
this is so much better. Yeah.
No, get feathered in the office, bitch.
Get feathered. That's gonna be my new version of get fucked. Get feathered.
I really enjoyed this, and people should ask questions about it all the time at every convention. Thanks. Yeah.
Yes. Now we also need to get Ben Edlund onto this show. For him, but then this has to, like, the show that episode has to be like a stationary kind of situation where you lock him in a room, like you rent an interrogation room, put up cameras and everything, and that's where it happens. Okay,
so final thoughts. Let's go around on this episode. Who wants to go first?
guest goes first, if
Oh
you
my God.
will, if you want to.
Sure.
If you feel.
I loved this episode. It like went by in a little blink. I didn't even know when I finished watching it. It was so fast. I haven't thought of it like that, but I love the idea that it is indeed like, oh, this is what this entire season was about. Disregard every other episode before this, or recontextualize it. I do think that this is like one of those like under-recognized literary masterpieces, and like, oh, this is a masterclass in how you write an episode of a TV show that has like 3 false bottoms. Yeah.
I agree with you on everything. Yeah. I think with that, I mean, I love that we get an episode from Cas's perspective. I wish we'd had another one, to be honest, like later on. I feel there are times that it could have been useful for the story.
Yeah,
Jack
exactly.
Or even if we got like a little episode from Cas's perspective of like all of those times that he's out of the bunker because he's hunting down this thing.
Like, human Cas, Cas who just got out of purgatory. There's so many little episodes and little snippets.
Human Cas would kill me.
We saw a little bit of it. Like, I don't know, a full episode would have been really great. But that's about other episodes. This is about this one. So I love this. I like the framing of it. I love the voiceover. I think Misha's amazing in it. He does such a good job through this whole episode. At the beginning and the end, I just think those scenes particularly are just really nice. Just like the emotion on that bench. And yeah, this is a big episode for Destiel. I have to say it. Like, I think this is probably the point that I was like, I see this now when I first watched the show. Like, because everyone was talking about it and I was like, no, I don't know. Like, really? You just ship anything these days. And then you watch this and you're like, wait, maybe there's something here. And so, yeah, I think this one holds a special place in my heart, and it has a lot of really good lines in it too.
It's Ben Edlund. You're gonna get them. You're gonna get them. Honestly, I don't know what else I could really add. Obviously, really enjoyed this episode. I'm so glad that this season had an episode like this, because season 6 has had a couple of moments, but overall it's been a harder watch than I originally anticipated. I've spoken about like how some episode like Vindicated with Solar Sam having too long. I know before we got here I was all about Solar Sam, but then I think it was just sort of some of the action was kind of interesting, but Solar Sam as a character is not actually that interesting. And they spent too much time faffing around with it and missed an opportunity to maybe like work on this aspect longer, because we only have 2 more episodes, but at the same time this is such a good high point that having it quite close to the end of the season works really well. And so at the beginning of this episode, when Cas and Dean are talking, they're lying to each other. At the end of the episodes, I think they're lying to themselves.
Yep. You're so good at summing things up.
Just a little.
I agree.
Shoot me, you don't ya?
Yeah. Especially, at not the I'm sorries. I think they are truly sorry that they're in this situation that they're in. But like, I'll do anything to stop you. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
And like, Cas is not going to use his angel powers against Dean.
No. So right. So, yeah. What a good episode, man.
So, what an episode. You are right.
Yes.
And then next week, we have Let It Bleed. I do not remember this because this probably is... I hope it's not a letdown. It is Sarah Gamble. So it could go either way because we do know at this point she is not... I wonder if something about the French mistake.
Maybe. They were so mean to her in the episode.
The French mistake broke Sarah Gamble. The theory.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. So at the end of the episode, we would love to thank Jay for being on the episode and also making our logo art and everything. It was a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much.
It's always fun to hear another perspective on episodes, even if it is going to take me several weeks to edit this. But we have several weeks until this comes out, so we're all good.
It's been a pleasure being here, as always. It's lovely having people to talk derangement with.
And talking about derangements, if you'd like to express yours with us, you can find us all over social media. We're on Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, some other places, YouTube, as Escaping Purgatory Podcast or Escaping Podcast on Twitter. Don't send derangement, send good theories. Please.
I am your typical at thepixelagora on Tumblr. I post random art of things. If you want, come say hi.
You should. The art is good.
Thank you.
Okay, so this week we went on a little monologue, took a little journey, and we had a little cry. Okay, so next week, hopefully we can find our way out. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.